All right, welcome back to the IMNerd podcast, guys. I'm your host, Freyway. I'm here with my co-host, Ken Chan. And today we have a special guest, a returning guest, Stang0, Kenny's cousin, actually, his younger cousin, who we had on before because he is, or was, one of the best Smash Bros. Melee players in the world, ranked, I think, as high as like 32nd, 33rd, something like that.
Oh, you actually got it, 32.
32, yes. He was top 32 in the entire world of Melee, and if you don't know, that game is extremely competitive and very, very difficult to play from a technical standpoint, and it keeps evolving, and it's 20 years old. And so to be that accomplished in that game is not easy. And trust me, I've tried, but I realized that I could not do both Yu-Gi-Oh! And Smash Bros. And be good at them both. And I don't like sucking at something. So I gave up on Melee completely and pursued Yu-Gi-Oh! But Stang0, he went on to have great success in that. And recently he was invited to Smash PM. They have a summit tournament and it's invitation only. And you can qualify for it through votes, I believe, right?
Yeah, so the first phase of it is community voting, and then the second phase of it is crowdfunding.
Yes. So did you have to do anything crazy to get in? I remember you were very close to being invited through votes or whatever, and I think that you mentioned something about maybe shaving your head or showing your asshole or dyeing it or something like that.
Whoa. You gonna bleach your asshole like Kanye West?
Thankfully, there was no bleached assholes.
Okay.
But yeah, it was pretty stressful. When it came to like the voting phase in itself, it kind of went through a breeze. I kind of gathered up some connections from my Melee days, from other content creators, and like
internet. I messaged. I had people who don't even know who you are voting. I was like, listen, just go here, do this. I'll suck your dick. And they did it. I didn't suck their dick though.
Okay.
Yeah, he has a lot of dicks to catch up on.
Yeah, they're going to
yeah, in terms of in terms of the stress that it comes, because to kind of give context to it, summit style events are, in the grand scheme of Melee's history, a relatively new thing. It's probably been happening for the last 6 years now or so, but the game is really old, as Fraser said. It's about 20 years old at this point in terms of its competitive lifespan. But when it came to summits, I actually qualified to pretty much, so to give background, to qualify for a summit to even be considered to be voted in through the crowd, like the community voting, where there's no money, it's just pretty much click a button to vote this guy in. You have to place pretty high at some events, which I did one of the years back in 2017, 2018, I want to say.
Right.
I did really well that year, and that was kind of like part of my rise as a player, where I was getting ranked wins, I was getting good placements, I was definitely coming to my own in terms of my player aptitude. So that year was...
You can only be qualified to even be voted on if you're a known player, basically, is what you're saying, right?
Yeah, in a sense.
Yeah,
you have to pretty much get like a top 64 placement at one of the big majors or nationals of that year.
So any random Joe Schmo can't just be like, well, I got enough votes because I'm popular some way.
Yeah, they actually, for the very first summit, I believe there wasn't that requirement. And there was actually a pretty big problem where there was actual random Joe Schmo in top 5. But they actually just said, no, that's not happening.
Here's Kevin Garnett at the PM Smash.
Yeah, like some random person that just is not known for Smash, not known for PM, and somehow made it in because they have internet connection.
Well, I'm referring to my run for Melee to kind of give context to the stressfulness of campaigning for a summit event.
Yeah.
So to cut to the chase, I placed well that year, getting really good. So I'm like, summit's coming up. I qualified to be nominated. I'm going to campaign. Got my friends, got my region. I get in, right? I get the vote in.
Yep.
So now it's money time. And this is the really tough part, because the region that I came from, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, East Coast, but not really.
Poverty.
Pennsylvania really hasn't been considered East Coast as far as a region for pretty much the entirety of Smash. Because not East Coast, Tri-State in particular. Tri-State is like the
Pennsylvania, not East Coast.
Yeah, I meant to say Tri-State. Tri-State's like kind of the conglomerate of like the region in the East, in the Northeast.
That everybody knows for Smash, even including Ultimate. You hear Tri-State over everything, Tri-State versus everybody. I actually see Spargo wearing that hoodie sometimes last year. I was like, what the fuck? Who gave him that? He's from Mexico. He has a Tri-State versus everybody hoodie on. Like, who put this little Mexican kid in this gangster ass hoodie?
So Tri-State mainly is built of New York, New Jersey, and then the definition kind of stretches to Connecticut a lot of the time.
Okay.
At least it did more so for Melee during this era, I would say.
Yeah.
Things are a little different now. Like Pennsylvania has a lot of strong players now, so Tri-State is kind of stretching to that definition of PA.
Yeah,
yeah.
all of us are in PA.
Tri-State always includes PA. All right, y'all you can't just like drop us off just because we're okay. Relax. And here's the other thing: it's not our fault. All of our good players either become coaches, commentators, or just leave. Scar,
Cactuar, Eggum.
Damn.
Don't blame us.
And I don't know many good players. There's a Meta Knight player in Ultimate from Philadelphia, I believe. And I'm pretty sure that's it for our city/region. And then the rest of it, like Tweak is in Jersey. And he's Tri-State, of course. He's like top 3 players in the world. Maybe top 5 now. But definitely up there in that top 5 echelon of all players who play Smash Ultimate. And yeah, when they say Tri-State, they're talking about the Tweaks of the world. They're not really talking about the Philly players.
And Philly,
there's like
all right, we got to spot dodge bullets.
Funny.
We got time to smash.
Funny enough, there's actually a Philly player. His name is Blazing Pasta that was pretty successful in Ultimate, but he's like literally like a top 5 player in Nick All-Star Brawl, which is a funny thing to note. Like he was decently good at like a regional and national level in terms of placements and wins, and he's just like really beast at like Nick All-Star Brawl now.
Well, we'll talk about that too in a little bit, but yeah. So give us more about this summit.
So anyway, the main thing I was bringing up with the Tri-State thing is that like Philly and PA have never really been part of a large region. They've kind of been their own ecosystem.
Yeah.
So the money bags are kind of, scarce in Philly. I'm poor. A lot of my friends are poor. Philly in general is just not a very rich region.
No, it's not.
There's a reason why we're fucking leading the murder capital, all right?
Yes. So it's like
Chicago.
In general, like when it comes to this, the numbers really mean a lot, but also the whales mean a lot. Like just people who are just entirely
from California, you have a really high shot of getting in because there's a lot of money in California.
A lot of top players that have really good exposure and connections with certain people. For example, like a lot of West Coast top level players are friends with Mango, which is pretty much one of the best players of all time in the game for several years and is honestly the most prolific player in terms of like rabbit following. So if he says this person should make it in, they're going to make it in. So that was a really stressful thing of it. However, fast forward to how the phases work. The first couple of phases, it's just killing people at the bottom who haven't raised enough money to get past a certain bar.
Mm.
And then the first phase comes up of if you make it in the top 2 cut of money, you make it to the event. I was actually number 1 for a grand majority of this first initial phase. 5 minutes before it comes down, a player named Westballs from the West Coast gets spirit bombed, is what they called it. Thousands and thousands of dollars rained upon him, jumps up the first, and then someone else jumps up. I think it was S2J actually, probably. That's what I imagine it was.
Oh, you're still talking about your first Melee summit.
Yeah, my first Melee summit. So that really disheartened me because I was like, I'm making it in. I'm getting in. I'm getting in.
Insane. That's a hard rug pull, man. Pulling a rug.
Yes, I definitely had my rug pulled. And after that happened, like that was all the push I had because, like I said, the resources are limited, like in this particular region at the time. So I just slowly started dwindling down, and all these other regions started getting in, and I didn't end up making it in. And that really bummed me out because it's like I think at the time, during that time specifically, that was really my rise. I think a summit style event like that was a really great opportunity for me to like really put my talents on and like only play good players.
Yeah, make a real big
get
name
the
for
practice.
Yourself.
Yes,
because Summit is a lot of exposure. I think that's primarily what it does. Outside of the huge payouts, like if you win big, but like the exposure is so insane. Anyone who makes it to Summit, you're on TV, or I should say, you're on Twitch, which is basically modern TV. You're on TV for 3 days straight. It might even be 4 days straight, but you're on TV for a long time, and they do skits. For people who don't know, I'm just kind of going over what Summit truly is. The prize for first place is 50K. Like in the last 2 or 3 years, I've been following it a lot because I love Smash Bros. I love watching Smash Ultimate Summit, and the prize has been for first place 50K. Second place is like 25K plus, and then it just like gets lower and lower obviously as you go down. But 50K for first, to me, is an insane amount of money for a tournament that only has probably 30 people in it, maybe even less than that, probably less than that. So
typically 16. It's usually 16 players total.
Yeah, so that's insane. 16 people, you're one of 16 people who could win $50,000. Now, granted, when it comes to fighting games, the best person in the room is going to always qualify for Summit, and they're probably going to win Summit or at least place top 2. And this is pretty much how it's been again for the last several years. But the good thing about Summit is that everyone does get paid, even if you get 16th. So if you won no rounds the entire tournament, like you got bodied by everybody, there has to be one guy. They still get paid money, and it's not even like a little bit. I think for Smash Ultimate's 16th place, they got like 2 to 3K. So,
and the most important thing is like you just get to play with a lot of other good players. The thing that I remember I was like mad back when you lost getting into the Melee Summit was I won't say their name, but another player got in, and like you were ranked. If I remember, I don't remember if you were ranked higher than him, but I know you played this player in tournament and you beat him. And from my experience watching this player and you, like I was just like I thought you were just strictly better than this person, but they ended up beating you in terms of getting in the Summit just because they had so much money behind them.
Yeah, and that's the thing about it. It's more so a popularity contest when it gets to that voting stage. It's not so much about like who's better, which can be like that can suck. I guess, Stang, I want to ask you. So I noticed that every year with Smash Ultimate, like MKLeo always gets in, Tweak always gets in, and
some people get invited.
So that's what I was about to say. I'm assuming that the top 4 players in the world or whatever, they just guarantee in. I don't know exactly what number it is.
Yeah.
But
So normally how it works is that there's a certain number allotted to the auto invites, which are pretty much the people who are legacy. Obviously, they're ranked in 1 through 6, 1 through 9, whatever it may be. And then you have your qualified placings, which is just like you got top 4 at this major, so you won a spot to Summit.
I saw that when they were doing like Pound or Big House and stuff like that. They were like, "Oh, the players from this will get a spot at Summit."
Usually it's like a loser side top 8 match, and everyone is like really hyped up about it because whoever wins this set, they get the Summit. So there's additional pressures and factors added to that set as well. It's like artificial hype to the set, because it's just like about getting this placement. But you can usually see it on the player's face, like it's really important.
And the winner from the previous Summit gets to come back to the next year's Summit no matter what. So I know Tweak won Summit for Smash Ultimate. Like he won the Summit. I think there were 2 Summits in 2021 for Smash Ultimate. But Tweak won one of them, and then he was immediately invited to the very next one without having to do anything. Like if he never left his house again, he would still be able to go. Granted, of course, he did leave his house again, and I think he even won in a major in between that. But it's pretty cool that Summit was one of the first big tournaments for Smash Ultimate after the pandemic started to slowly dwindle down and real life things were allowed. So him coming out of that and beating MKLeo 6-0, like he beat him twice and 3-0 him both times, I'm pretty sure. That was huge. Like, it meant a lot. And that exposure, just the exposure at the time, people were like, "Yo, is he the best player in the world now?" Like Summit hypes you up like nothing else. Like that shit really hypes you up.
So I have a question though. So for the PM Summit, so now for anybody who doesn't know, you actually got into Summit for PM. Was there a money phase for that?
Yeah, so let me actually pull up the stats on this because I actually was meaning
you got in. So we all like a bunch of people. We all like voted for you, right? And I know we like put a bunch of votes that get you in. Now, did that get you in, or did that just put you into the money phase?
That put me into the money phase.
And that's how you know I'm broke. He didn't even hit me up for the money phase. He was like, I got the votes. He was like, I'm not talking to him for the money phase.
Like, hey man, every part counts.
Yeah, so normally, so what happened here is that I got in through the voting phase, right? And what's an interesting transition of when I think I was like 22 at the time, maybe 21, 20. when I tried to get into Melee Summit. Spirit was really crushed, was really down on myself because I was like, damn, like this was my opportunity, and I felt like it just like was almost there and it got taken away. So I was really devastated after that. PM Summit comes around. I've been taking Project M, pretty much just a fan-made mod of Brawl to make it more like Melee, is the TLDR on that. The game is pretty storied, pretty history, and an interesting thing about PM is that its top level talent is really, really heavy. Like it's a very top end game. It's not like Melee where there's a lot of these intermediate and high level players. It is like at the very top, it's very cutthroat, very talented, very strong.
I think I get that because when ARG used to run their own events, so ARG is a third party store, used to be my sponsor, Ultra Reality Games. Shout out to Jim McMahon. They used to run their own tournaments, right? And these tournaments used to have cash prizes, which lured in a lot of players. But what it lured in was the whales. It lured in the top of the top Yu-Gi-Oh players, whereas the casuals who like to go to regionals, they like to go to locals and stuff like that, they weren't necessarily traveling to, like, let's say Dallas, Texas. That's the first ARG was held in Texas. They wouldn't travel from Philly to Texas like I did to play in a tournament that had a really big cash prize and was hosted by someone that wasn't Konami. But the Patrick Hobans of the world, Billy Break, that's where that infamous match between me and him played. You wouldn't want to play me at my full power and all that stuff. That happened there. Like, there were a lot of really, really good players at that event. And it's because I think that those type of events that are just based on being really competitive, like the reason why PM exists is because people wanted a competitive version of Brawl. Brawl is just not a competitive game, really. Like at its really deep core, it's so problematic. So PM was basically a way, and if I'm speaking wrong, let me know, but PM basically was to correct a lot of things that Brawl did wrong from a competitive standpoint. So the people who that game attracts by default are going to be people who are really competitive by nature, right? Like you don't have as many casuals playing PM as you would like Brawl. Like the casuals will just play Brawl and they like it.
Yeah, it's the thing of PM where, you know, the top players of the game and like people who, you know, shape the metagame of PM, of Brawl rather, is, you know, they made a competitive game out of it. It was a long, long time, but they essentially had to really overcome a lot of hurdles because the game from a design standpoint is made to not be competitive. A lot of the things about the game's engine is to limit the ability of like how fast you can move, how many times you can hit somebody in a row in a combo, how you can edge guard them, like all the things in Melee that made the game really tight in its engine and really rewarding to play for people who were, you know, good at the game, was just hence removed when it came to Brawl, because that just wasn't the goal when the game was made in 2001.
What's so funny about that is, well, Brawl was 2000.
I was referring to Melee in that sense. Yeah. Like the goal of Melee was not to have one of the most hardest technical fighting games of all time.
It was funny about Brawl though is they added a bunch of mechanics that made it really frustrating to play seriously, like tripping, for example. But then they added Meta Knight, who just avoided all of the things that stopped you from being competitive. Like he had 3 jumps or 4 jumps. He could fly.
Six jumps.
He had 6 jumps. He could fly. He could glide. He could just like combo. He could go up. Like they added, like, Meta Knight avoided all of the things that were put in the game to stop competition. He was like,
yep.
Don't worry.
And then Ice Climbers in that engine pretty much were totally fine with not being fast and like crazy technical because they weren't in Melee. But in Brawl, if you make mistakes, they had infinite combos that killed every character no matter what. Did not matter as long as your execution and timing on re-grabbing them was consistent enough. You get a grab, they are dead at 0 or 999. It did not matter when you grab them. So the game's engine like also benefited them a lot because like you can't get them off stage and kill them easily. You can't touch their shield because shields are really cracked in that game. You also can't run away from them because most characters are a lot slower, or you'll just randomly trip and get grabbed anyway.
We're all so bad.
Yeah.
I know that there's people that love it, right? Like, because they grew up when it was their first Smash game, and like they love it, but you're wrong.
I think that if you're dying on the hill of Brawl is my favorite Smash game, there's something mentally like off there. Because there's been Smash games that came after it that are way better. Like Smash 4 is way better. Smash Ultimate's infinitely better. And then before that, you have Melee and you have 64. Brawl is literally the worst Smash game ever created. That is not even that's not a hot take. That's not like I don't even think it's subjective. I think that is objectively. I actually watched a video from Panda Global. They are a big Smash, YouTube channel, and they actually ranked every Smash game. Like they ranked all of them, and Brawl so it was pro players rank every Smash game, and every single pro who they asked put Brawl at the bottom. Like that was the worst one. They said, let's get the easy one out the way. The worst one is Brawl. Every single one, like every single person you asked was like Brawl in the video. They welcome people at an event, like one of the events that's a super major, so every good player's there. And they're like, what's the worst? What's the ranked all the Smash games? And it's like Brawl was always the first one that people said is the worst, right? So that is just a fact at this point. I feel like it's subjective.
Yeah, the way that I would put it personally is that I think Brawl isn't inherently the worst game just because it's the worst game. I think it went the incorrect direction for the game to be successful, where instead of, rebalancing the game to deal with some problematic things that exist in Melee, because there definitely are things that are wrong with the game in terms of its balance. They decided to remove pretty much like a lot of aspects that made the game fun for a great player base. So I think Melee players have always had a bit of a disdain for that, because instead of you trying to fix the game, you pretty much made the game not fun for me to play.
Yeah, Brawl's just not fun. But that's why PM's sick.
Yeah.
So what did PM do to fix Brawl? Let's discuss that
It just makes it play more like Melee. Like they added L canceling, they changed a lot of the gravity, they changed a lot of the move sets, and they just made the combo system, the hit stun, like all of that stuff. They made it more similar to Melee. Now it's not Melee perfect, but they changed as many mechanics as they could to make it more similar to Melee. Like for
example, Melee was Smash Ultimate, let's just say that in terms of modern game design and stuff like that. Let's just say Melee was like Smash 4, right? Like that's the next title that came out. Let's say they go 64, then they go Brawl flops or something like that, because it's like whatever. Then they have Melee. If they were to make Ultimate, because Ultimate is pretty much modeled right after, like pretty much after Smash 4 with some changes and redesigning, right?
Yeah.
That's what PM would be. It's essentially if Melee 2 was made. It has a lot of the things that make what Melee are good, but also combines the best aspects of Brawl. There's a lot of cool techniques in Brawl that like are really fun to do in a Melee type engine. Yeah, there's like a technique called wave bouncing, which essentially you just do a special move input with a certain combination on your control stick, and it like moves your momentum in a non-traditional way of how that move would work. There's also RAR, which is called reverse aerial rush, where essentially if you're in your full run animation, you tap to the opposite way that you're running and you jump. You'll jump with all the forward momentum that you normally would, but you'll be facing backwards.
Yes.
And that doesn't exist in Melee. Like if you want to be facing backwards and jump off the stage with a lot of speed, really the only way to do it is moonwalking, which is another technique, but
yeah, and it's also pretty tough to do.
Yeah.
Like PM, one of the very first things, like before PM was PM, one of the very first like mod changes that were made to Brawl was fixing Falco's shine. Like that was like such a big thing. Like they made it so Falco's shine stayed on him and bounced you up. That was like one of the very I think the first PM character is Falco. Like Falco is the first character they made to play like Melee. And then the rest of PM and like the offshoots like Brawl Plus and Brawl Minus sort of all started from there.
Yeah, the very early builds of PM pretty much had that, where the Falco was changed and adjusted, because in Brawl he used to kick his shine away and it used to just push you away from him, versus Melee it's on top of him and it sends you up, so you can do his famous pillar combos where he just does pretty much an up down loop into I
love the way
a strong
looks.
Another thing about early PM that was cool was like at the time, early PM didn't have all the characters in it, right? It would like at first it had like 10 characters because they were
Yeah,
they were
because there was
modding like
programming issues. Brawl was a very
yeah.
complicated game in the way that it was designed. So
So like characters would it felt like you were waiting for new characters to come out in a new game. Like
it
you
was
were waiting for
literally
characters to get made in the PM engine. It was so sick.
it was exactly like how like modern games are kind of made in that way now,
Yeah.
where it's like you have the base game and then you have DLC. But the nice thing
Yeah.
about PM is that it was all free.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it,
that's
it was a
cool.
really fun
And it's
experience.
made by the community, right? Like it's all
Yeah, pretty
community
much
driven.
it was mainly made by like a lot of people who are just like super ingeniously smart. You have a lot of people like Magus. God, there's too many names to even say. Strong
Yeah.
Bad was a really big name with it. Just a lot of people who just were really good at designing the game. And really just made something special.
That's amazing. It's all community driven, and that kind of reminds me. I always take everything back to Yu-Gi-Oh, but that kind of reminds me of how ARG at one point the normal Konami format was really toxic. The balance was just bad, and I don't think we had gotten a new one for a while. So the format became stale, and ARG was like, okay, well, how about this? We're just going to make our own adjustments to the current ban list, and people showed up for that shit. And I think that those events that ARG was running at the time, those were really big. They were getting like 400 players. Like
Yeah,
the
that's
first
really cool.
yeah, they were like, okay, the problem that everyone is complaining about, for example, I'm going to throw something out. I don't know if this is actually what it was, even though I definitely got top 4 at one of the tournaments with an altered ban list. But let's just say Trishula was a problem. They would say, okay, Trishula is banned. Like if everyone's complaining about this card, it's actually super problematic. It's low interaction or whatever it is. They're like, Trishula is banned for the ARG event. So that just tweaked deck building so much because everyone had to build around Trishula at one point in Yu-Gi-Oh. Like it was that serious that Trishula, it was such a polarizing card that every deck had to have Trishula in mind. And if you resolved it, it was too much for anybody to come back from. So they were like, well, this isn't really competitive. This isn't really fun. Well, let's fix this. And that's essentially what happened with PM is like, this isn't competitive. This isn't fun for most of the communities. Like this just is not it. Like I tripped and fell in front of an ice climber. it's just like an Attack on Titan before Erin's mom gets eaten and she's just a sitting duck and the Titan just reaches down and grabs her and that's the end of her life. It's the same thing.
I remember there was this video. It was like I want to say it was called like Tripping is Meta or like Tripping is Good or something like that. And it's like Marth versus Samus, and the Marth goes to dash forward and he trips. And because he trips, he like ends up going under Samus's like power shot. Like Samus shoots the power shot and Marth like trips and goes under the shot.
That is so bad.
Like just it was so random.
Yeah. So current PM, the one that you actually qualified for their summit and played in, what is that like? And I know they have like all these characters and stuff that are not in any Smash game.
What's so cool is because Brawl took out characters. It took out Roy, took out Mewtwo. When PM first, like it fixed all the characters that were in Brawl for PM, but then they added back Roy, Mewtwo, and they added characters that were in Melee. But then like they added fucking Knuckles.
Yeah, Knuckles is a playable character, which is really cool. It would be cool.
Yeah, it's actually a little like it's a pretty known little secret in the community, but for a long time back in version 3.6, which is like pretty much the one of the biggest patches in terms of how long it was played. It's the patch that's been played on the longest because the Project M team disbanded after 3.6. So that was like the final patch in a way. But there was like test builds, pretty much like demo builds of a Knuckles that was like pretty much almost complete. There was also plans to get Lynn and Isaac from Golden Sun into the game as well. Those were a little bit more incomplete. Knuckles was like pretty much around the corner in the way.
Sammy from Advance Wars was another character they were working on.
Yeah,
but they never finished.
But in regards to like PM now, so I make it in through the voting phase. Money phase comes around, and such a stark difference of when I was, I call myself young, even though I'm like not that old, but like I feel like mindset. I'm 24 now.
Okay, yeah, you're still young.
Yeah, I'm still young, but as far as like my mindset and like where I was in my life, like Melee was a really, really big part of my life during that time. The thing for me is that now in my life, I play a lot of PM. I'm like one of the best players in PM. I practice it a lot. But things are a little different in my life. I have a career. I have a girlfriend that I've been with for a very long time now. I live on my own. I'm like more adulting in terms of like what's my priorities now. So when it came to PM Summit, I also just had a lot more advantages for me where I actually kind of have like a little bit of a career thing. I actually make money.
Right.
And the PM community is a lot smaller to the Melee community. So the idea got in my head for PM Summit. I'm like, I feel like I can get a little bit of money from people and I can actually just buy myself in.
Right.
Because like I actually just make real money. So it's like, how big is this thing going to get, right? Kind of a surprising result when it comes to that. Let me see. So the biggest prize pool for PM up until PM Theater, spoiler alert, largest prize pool in PM's history.
The one that you
PM
qualified for.
Summit,
Yeah, for what was the PM Summit, which is called PM Theater. It has a lot of really cool aesthetics to it, by the way. It was like literally like a Mario Party like theater like theme
like a
tournament.
Paper Mario.
Yeah, it was literally like a Paper Mario, like it was like a I don't even know how to even say it, like Machiavellian like theater style like tournament. It was really cool.
For anybody that doesn't
Phantom
know
of the Opera shit.
Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door. It's the second Paper Mario game. It's an RPG. When you play all of the battles, like RPG battles, there's a crowd because like you're on a stage on all the battles. There's a crowd that like cheers and you can do shit. So they had like Paper Mario like crowd and like cut like Paper Mario style characters of like Mewtwo and other PM characters in the crowd. So while you were watching, Stang0 play somebody, there's like a little thing that has like a fake PM crowd of like, and they look like Paper Mario characters.
That's
and they're, like,
cool.
jumping
That's
around
really cool.
Yeah, it was really, really neat. Really, really neat.
Theme.
Yeah, the theme was spot on. It was definitely very summit in its spirit. So up until that point, the largest prize pool for a PM tournament was about $2,500, maybe $3,000. The money that was raised all together for this event from the crowdfunding was around $30,000.
Wow.
The game, in terms of like the money it's seen, has never even been that close before. Leading up to this, the money I was raising myself, getting from other people and everything like that, getting support from my friends, I started getting that sinking feeling again. I'm like, oh God, like, this is like, is this going to happen to me again?
Right.
Like, am I not going to make it in?
Am I just going to be a pop monster?
I just like, I held it down. I didn't think about it. I got some money in on myself. I got some big bombs from several friends. I make it in by about $100.
Now,
that's close.
That is close. Did you end up doing anything to make it in? Like anything with your hair or shaving or dyeing?
No, I actually avoided all that. I pretty much was like campaigning, making content for people. A lot of people were tuning in, watching. But here's the thing. You can get people to watch your stream and be like, oh, haha, like give views and all this stuff. But like getting people to spend money on you, especially a significant amount, like random people, that's just never the strategy in these type of things. Like you said, popularity contests, you need to be able to find whales, like people who in all honesty are just entirely irresponsible with their money, like people who just cannot make correct like life decisions whatsoever.
Oh yeah.
People who are just like how are you still alive? Type of feel here.
Yeah.
Yes. You need some degenerates.
I love the
you gotta find all your friends that play gotcha games. You gotta find your friends that blow $5,000 every time a new waifu comes out.
In my case, my friends who love to go to the casino, which is pretty much all of them. Every single fucking friend I have, I think, except Gus, likes to gamble. Like they either like to roll for money or roll for cards, or they like to go.
Not Fraser's friend.
Or they like to go to the fucking casino. Almost all of them. Gus is one of them, and there's a couple others that but I don't want to start naming like everybody.
Yeah.
Because I thought about Xavier. Like Xavier doesn't go to the casino anymore. He used to be, like to gamble. You from what I understand, I don't think I've ever seen you gamble. You're like me. I think you money is precious to us. We like our money so much that parting with our money is a big deal. I know people might think that I like to like spend my money all crazy willy nilly. But in reality,
they see your stories on like Facebook and stuff like that, and you're like, oh, you're bougie now, huh? Like you're getting all these fancy meals and stuff.
Is a very calculated, well thought out purchase to make me happy in life, because life is very transitory. It's fast, it's quick, and I think that you should use your money to be happy. I think all work and no play is not the way to live.
Sick when I see people like on slot machines and stuff. Like, what are you doing? Just
I
go do anything else.
I can't do it. I know you have a chance to win, but I know that the odds are stacked against
you. You don't have a chance.
It is literally the purest definition of a scam. That is all we need to know.
I believe I said this on the podcast before, but if not, if you want to make any money going to the casino, just like bet on red or black. Just go to the roulette table, take your 50-50, and just be like,
yeah, it's a little less than 50-50, but it's the closest you'll probably get outside of blackjack. And you have to know how to play blackjack literally perfectly to make the odds even close to 50-50 in blackjack, which 99% of people who play blackjack do not play book perfect. Like, I need you to play like a actual robot. So that being said, it's the whole idea of like having money and parting with money. I get it. I don't really like to gamble, but those are the people who do like to spend money on Twitch streams and stuff like that. So people will watch you and be entertained by you, but they'll never open their wallets.
Yes, that's that's just like a main thing that I've kind of known with like just seeing summits like go by in Melee, and like this is PM's first summit, so this is like our emulation of the event that's really like carried Melee's like higher echelon competitive play.
Yeah, because I think that the Smash Summit for Melee and Ultimate gets upwards of 150K in prizes. Like I said, first place takes home 50K.
Right. In general, a lot of summits are very, very successful in how much money they actually pull in. This year's summit for Melee is actually a little bit on the lower end, and I think that mainly just has to do with the idea that having like 4 summits a year, 2 in the fall, 1 in the fall, 1 in the summer for both games, Ultimate and Melee. It's just a lot, and also like
so many.
There's events are opening up again, so like people are just kind of like, I want to spend my money to go to things now.
Before, when everybody was in the house, it made sense that they're like, fuck it, I want this entertainment. This is my favorite player. I really want him to get in. I know Fatality, a Smash Ultimate player, he's the best Falcon in the world, the best Captain Falcon. He shaved his head to get into Summit this last Smash Summit.
I do think they need I do want them to dial it back. I think 2 summits for Ultimate and Melee a year is so much. Like, just have like a summer and a winter summit. Have like 1 for Melee, 1 for Ultimate. I just think 2 for both. It's so much, man.
It is a lot in my opinion too. And I used to think that they were once a year. I guess they used to be, but like anything else that's successful.
I would say like in the last 3 years, they probably changed it to the schedule where it's 2 for each.
Yeah, I agree with Kenny though. I do think that it was more special, I think, when it was not as often. Now, granted, I will watch as many of them as they do. If they do a summit every fucking weekend,
5 a year, I would watch it.
I will watch every single one because I actually enjoy it so much because you're literally watching the best of the best play and only the best of the best play. So like, it's really, really nice for high level people who enjoy high level competition like that, which I do. And the thing about Smash is that the high level players have they have big personalities. Like Hungry Box, Mango, like all of those guys, they're very, very big personalities. Even Zane, right? Like they're all like these Leffen. They're very polarizing characters. Like they kind of play characters. Like, they have their real lives and then their Smash lives. And they're such big personalities. Like on Twitter, I always think about like how Leffen speaks on Twitter. There's even a Twitter bot that was written to be Leffen, and it just writes things that it takes tweets and it writes them in ways that Leffen would talk, and it's so fucking funny to me. I follow it. It's such a funny, I don't know who made this bot, but it's so hilarious the way it speaks, because it speaks just like he does. And that type of thing, like just the fact that he's that big of a character, the way he talks, the way he complains about things, the way he bitches and moans about things, is all part of who he is. And granted, he's one of the best players to ever play Melee. So like watching him play in a summit is really cool to me. And same thing with Smash Ultimate. Like I like all of the big names and Smash Ultimate. So these things they're really high exposure, a lot of money too. So they're not playing for nothing. You can feel the intensity in the matches. You feel it. But yeah, it's nice. I even like the fact that every summit is different, because if it was just 16 of the best players every time, you probably just see the same 16 people every.
It's always nice to have like the the money vote-ins.
Yes.
Because those people are generally up and coming, or they're like crowd favorites of like their region. Like
Right.
sometimes certain regions, like there could be a guy in Illinois or something that's just like nice at the game, and they're like, we're getting our boy in.
Right.
Like,
and what's cool about it, a lot of times the people who you're talking about, Stang0, they might not be able to go to every event like the top players are. Like MKLeo, Mango, Hungry Buck, they go to every single event basically. They don't go to events when they don't feel like it at this point. Like if Mango's not at a Smash Melee event, it's because Mango didn't want to go to the Smash Melee event. He
also just makes more money streaming than actually going to tournaments.
Which is my point, is like they don't want to. If they don't go to an event, it's because they don't want to now. But people like you who are on you're very good at the game, but you might have the resources to go to every single one. Like this one's in Cali. That's a fucking $1,000 trip at this point. Like the flight, hotel, food, and if you have to pay anything else, like normal events that are not invites have venue fee, which is
$100 or so. I would say like $150 is like standard entry, including venue and
with
like
inflation, I see things going up. There's a whole discussion about making the actual entry for tournaments. It's like $10. They want to make it $20, and people are up in arms about this extra $10. Which to me, an adult who makes good money, is like that just seems fucking ridiculous. But when they put it in perspective of like what regular people, like the casuals, don't have, disposable income and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So.
Also, like at the end of the day, like a lot of us got into a lot of these games as kids, right?
Yes.
Making it $20 makes it a lot harder. It's already hard enough to convince your dad to give you $10 to go play a video game. It's like now you got to convince your dad to give you $20.
Yeah. And you need those people. You need casuals. No scene can survive with zero casuals, basically. Like, you just need those, because that's the majority of the people. Majority of people are not going to be MKLeo. It's great to have an MKLeo because that's something that people aspire to be, and he brings in the views. He brings in the crowd, right? People want to play against him. They want the shot, the chance to play. Like I'm in a pool with MKLeo. That's amazing, even if they're going to get destroyed or upset them. Just the chance, the thought of it will bring people to your tournament. But you can't have a tournament of MKLeos. Like, it's just not realistic. So you do need the people who are willing to fly out, and put that money up, even though they might not. They pretty much know that they're not going to do the best.
Yeah, but they go for the fun of it. Like I went to Evo in 2012. Like I fully knew I wasn't going to win Street Fighter Evo in 20. I entered Street Fighter and KOF. I knew I wasn't winning either of those games, but I just went for the fun of going to Evo, hanging out with people. I actually did okay. I didn't go 0-2, so I was happy.
For me, that's
like at Evo, I fully expected to go 0-2. And at that time, there wasn't a lot, at least in my area, there wasn't a lot of Street Fighter tournaments, like locals. So I actually went to Evo, and that was like my third Street Fighter tournament. Like there wasn't a lot. I had played in more Melee tournaments than Street Fighter tournaments. So I was fully expecting to go 0-2, but I didn't. I was hyped.
Yeah, the Dudley's nice.
So how did you end
up? Dudley, I played Balrog.
Balrog.
He was just like, oh, they're both black boxers.
Yes. They're both black boxers. I cannot tell the difference. I don't see color. That's my story.
No, I don't see color.
Oh, wait, hold on. Real quick. This is so relevant. At the PM Theater, the PM Summit that Stang0 is at, I watched, so you might not even know this, Stang0, right? Because you were there. You weren't watching the stream.
Okay.
So I'm watching the stream. I watched like a good bit of it, right? We had like a little hangout at one point. I'm watching it, and so I'm watching. People are playing. I'm like, oh, this guy's good. I remember at one point I was talking to like our friend Nick, and I was talking to Cheyenne, and like whenever Stang0 wasn't on the screen, Nick was like, oh, what is this shit? How'd I get on this channel? And he like got to change the channel. But anyway, so there's a part where a guy from Philly, his name's .com, Nadim, really, really cool guy, good PM player. He was commentating the event at PM Theater. He's a black dude, little heavy set. So he's at one point on the couch. It's him and two white guys.
Oh my God. I know exactly what you're talking about.
They're talking about they're talking about something. I don't know what they're saying. They're talking about something, but something about race gets brought up. And the one white guy goes, I don't see color. And Nadim looks at him and goes, well, you should get that checked out.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
So hard. Because like the white guy got kind of awkward. And he was like, well, I don't see color. And then Nadim just looks at him and goes, well, you should get that checked out. Right. And then just like moves on.
Yeah, he was really smooth with it too. I know exactly what you're talking about. That was a really, really good moment. He was also making basketball references with two white guys on the couch as well. And they were just like, oh,
I know not what you speak of.
Yeah, he was talking about me and my friend that were playing in doubles. But we can get to that.
Yeah,
with
so let's talk about how
the
you
event
actually
itself.
how you performed at the summit, right? So you played in a doubles
Yeah,
tournament.
yeah. So the doubles tournament was first up in terms of what actually completed, and me and my boy DVD Brian, during the shutdown of COVID, the region that I kind of adopted me because like I just discorded with them a lot, played a lot of net play and stuff like that. Um, Pretty much, I'm like NYNJ in terms of a region. Like, there's really no Pennsylvania or Philly players, or at least like I don't really have a strong connection with them. There's definitely no Delaware players where I live now, so it's like that's I'm not a Delaware player
Damn,
in
no
terms of.
Ultimate Scout. He's retired. Ultimate Scout's gone.
He's gone. He's canceled as well.
Oh damn.
Is he?
Yes.
Holy shit! I didn't know that.
Yeah, he's canceled. He's out of here. But
Man, RIP.
yeah, so I'm like NYNJ in terms of my region. During like that entire summer, fall, winter of just like COVID ruining the world, played a lot of singles, played a lot of doubles, and between all the people that we played, like Malachi is also one of my really good friends. He's one of the best players. I really respect him a lot. He's pretty much like my like he would say that he's Vegeta or he was Goku, and I would say I'm Vegeta or Goku. We would just always say the opposite. We're pretty much like that kind of
You guys are like
relationship.
rivals.
Yeah, we pretty much just power each other up. Like we keep each other like oh, you're doing this bad. Like you're not bad. Stop being bad. Like we pretty much keep each other at like top performance so we can just like take over the game. Like that's kind of like our relationship. But between him, who's insanely good, and another one of my boys, Boyko, like when we play all these doubles games, me and DVD, we always had the best synergy. Like we just clicked really well. So he's going to theater because he landed a spot from actually placing really well after not going to a tournament for 3 years. This guy's cracked at the game, by the way. Played a new character. He traditionally always played Toon Link for several years. Picked up Sheik over quarantine. Got third at like the biggest major, like when the doors opened up after COVID.
Dude, you
Like
and
kind of died
DVD
down a little bit.
were killing it in doubles. I remember
we already knew when going into the event, like no shit, like not even like talking shit or just like pretending like we weren't going to lose. There was not a single percentage chance of anyone beating us.
So I was hosting. Me and Frazier were helping host the RBET.
That's
Edison
what we were
tournament.
doing. I was like, we were doing
Yeah.
something. We were watching that at the same time.
Yeah. So we're hosting the RBET tournament, and I had the PM Theater on my other monitor, but I wasn't able to all the way pay attention. So there was at one point where my girlfriend was PMing me because she was watching you play, and she was PMing me like a bunch of stuff you were doing, like when you were winning or losing or whatever. And then so like I was getting a bunch of updates from her as you were going through the tournament. And then when the Edison tournament was done, I got to like really tune in. And when I watched in the doubles tournament, you and the guy DVD were absolutely murdering. There's a part where
scraping
in our group chat
off the floor.
Dude, we have a group chat. It's me, you, Frazier, Gary, and a bunch of other friends, Cairo, etc. And I start popping off in the group chat like, guys, you have to like. I think I sent the link. I was like, there's a part where you guys were down. I want to say like 5 stocks or something. It was like you had 2 stocks or you had 1 stock and your DVD had 2 stocks, and they still had like 3 stocks and 4 stocks. And there's a part where your Fox is just moving, and you delete like 4 stocks between the two of them in less than a minute. And I was like, this fucking kid is moving so aggressively. It was so cool. And like the way you guys were playing, you brought that back and won that game. And then you guys went on to just murder the doubles event. And you guys got first place. Who'd you play in grand finals?
We played Blue and the Doctor.
Oh.
So,
dude, the commentators were saying like the Blue and Doctor, I think they were saying like this is the #1 ranked doubles team. Like in terms of doubles, they were the best doubles team. They win the doubles tournaments, whatever. They're the #1 ranked doubles team. And
not a chance. They didn't have a chance.
Dude, they got obliterated. Like it didn't even look close. Like,
no, it wasn't. It wasn't. So Blue Doctor, they won Blacklisted doubles, which was like a little prestigious. There was a lot of people there. PM, as far as ranking, is a little weird. There's sample size issues because we don't have as many events because we can't run concurrently or like alongside of like the big Melee events because it's obviously not supported by Nintendo. You know how they are about mods. So like we kind of have these like basement tournaments, like these underground tournaments. We're pretty much like Melee was before like the boom of the documentary in a way. We have that like rumbling of like people like being active and attending, but it doesn't have the outreach that like Melee currently has now. So they were considered the best doubles team just because they won Blacklisted pretty dominantly. I teamed with Boyko, and like Boyko's a great player. I just always think that like we don't really mesh that well in terms of like the way he wants to do things are like the same way I want to do things, and usually the way you complement like your teammate the best is like you facilitate or like make the ease of like their game plan choices to like even be twice as effective. If I want to be aggressive or defensive, the best teammate for me would be the person who amplifies that game plan I want to go for. So if I want to be aggressive, like my teammate controls the stage, he allows me to be aggressive. He pretty much gives me free reign and like supports me through that. Boyga and I, we've just always we've always not really like kind of clashed in that way where like we really want to do the same things in terms of the way we want to play. But DVD, godlike support. If he doesn't want to get touched or hit, his will be done. He runs, he's defensive, he punishes people for being overly aggressive, and he just supports my aggression so well because I just think that's the correct way that you play Fox in doubles. He's just so overwhelming, especially since he can just spam buttons on shield because you can't really punish Fox like you can in singles. Like if you've seen Zane on FD with Fox, like those kind of combos just don't happen. You don't have enough time in doubles. There's a whole other character that will stop you from doing this.
You think Fox is the best doubles character in PM?
Yeah, I think he's the best doubles character, and I think the best team in the game is Fox and Wario.
Yeah. Is that who Overgot plays? He plays Wario?
No, he plays Sheik.
Okay.
Which is also just like the moral of the story is like with how broken Fox is in doubles, any team with Fox is its power level is significantly amped up.
Right. So you just play, somebody needs to be playing Fox.
Yeah, but the thing is that I'm actually the best Fox player, and like in Melee, I think my decision making with Fox in general is like a pretty high level Fox, but it's like the execution of Melee because the game's engine is like a lot weirder in terms of its difficulty because of just how it's programmed. Not to just bore, it's just a harder game to execute in because the engine is just like older. It's made like not as smooth, I guess you could say. But in PM, I'm like the best Fox by a very, very large margin. Like my results wise and just like in general with my like skill and just like player power with Fox, it's it's like a strategy that's like only to me. Like no one else is allowed to have this strategy because no one can like match with like my Fox's like power.
That's good.
So
yeah. So it's almost like the Hungrybox effect where it's like Hungrybox has like the power of Jigglypuff more so than like any other Puff could have. So he has this advantage over other people.
Yeah.
It's kind of something similar to that.
So you guys won the doubles tournament and then you played in the main event. And would you finish top 4 in that one?
Yeah, I got 4th. Projected much higher than my seed. I think I was seeded to get like 7th or 8th or something like that. So pretty good wins in terms of like what I consider good wins because I know where I stand in terms of my player skill. I didn't get any wins I was really proud of, but on paper my wins were nice. I beat DVD, but I always beat him in friendlies. Like when we play, like he gets beat up pretty bad because
so that's your partner, right? From the
yes, we played in singles. He was actually took me to game 5. In terms of the loser side of the bracket. So it was, you know, if I win or lose, you know, I'm out or I continue on.
Right.
One thing I wanted to touch on, which is like just kind of speaking to like where I am in life in terms of competing in Smash. When I first really started getting good at Melee on a regional level where I became the quote unquote king of Philly, where like I beat everybody in sets, no one could take me. I won at every tournament in like the Philadelphia region. If there wasn't like a really strong like out of state player who like showed up. If it was all in state, it was just assured that I would win. During that time, I didn't have a job, so it was like Melee was like my income, like paying bills, supporting my girlfriend, just doing general things. Like I had to get first to like make good money. And eventually when things got harder, that put a lot of stress on me. And it caused a lot of like kind of inner turmoil with like my competitive spirit, because it was more so less about like the journey of being like good and having fun with that. It was like I'm treating the thing that I enjoy the most as a job, and it
Yeah,
really messed with me in that case.
that's true for
So much
everything
so
too.
that I had to kind of like take a break to kind of recenter myself. The thing that's so great about PM for me now, I have a career, I have money, I'm good where I am in life. Uh, I spent money to get to this event. Overall probably only went like I made like $1,800 over that weekend.
Mhm.
I probably like made positive like 500 in terms
Yeah,
of like
yeah.
what I invested to get there.
Yeah, like net is $300.
Yep. And the difference between losing the set against DVD right then and there and winning was about like $500 in terms of earnings and winnings. And I
Right.
just thought about it when I was waiting for my set. I was just like, damn, this would really stress me out knowing this like way before. But like,
Oh yeah, I get what
I
you mean.
don't care.
Right,
Yeah,
you're
I
not
don't care
playing
if I
for
win
the
or
money,
lose
right?
for the money
Yeah.
at all. And
Like if
that
you
felt
lost,
so.
obviously you want to win because like that's what you're there for. But if you lost, you're not going to be in a spiral of depression because like you fucking went in the hole and you
Yeah.
can't have
Yeah,
the money.
it was just really liberating, and it made me really really happy. And I think that also helped like just my general competitive nerves. I'm like, wow, like
I agree.
this like $500 difference means nothing to me. Like
Yeah.
I could lose right now and make zero money, which can't happen, but I could literally make zero money and it wouldn't matter to me at all.
That's really important because it helps with your mental so much. Like,
Mental is so big for competitive anything. It's
Yes.
so big. Like, yeah, you can have the technical play, you can have the right character, you can have the meta call, you can do all of those things. But at the end of the day, if your mental is just not there when it comes time to play, none of that matters. Like, you need to be mentally strong. Your fortitude just has to be top notch because I think that IBDW spoke to this when he won Summit, the last Melee Summit that he won, or there might have been one after that by now, but I remember IBDW.
There was Zane won the last one.
Right, so I can't even keep up
that's
anymore.
absurd. Like, there's too many.
Yeah,
They
'cause
gotta relax.
that IBDW one, I feel like it just
Oh
happened.
wait, no, I'm being slow. You're right.
Okay,
That
so I was
that
gonna
was
say,
the last one.
the
I was thinking
IBDW
about
one
Genesis.
just
I was thinking about
happened.
Genesis.
Okay, because Kenny and I literally just watched IBDW, and I was like, damn, that guy's really good.
Yeah, like it's been 2 months maybe, but
maybe
it
2 months.
just happened.
Yes, that is still just happened to me. 60 days, within 60 days seems like pretty decent. But yeah, he won the last Smash Summit, but he spoke to like why he won it, and he said that it was all mental for him. Before he used to be a rager, he was one of those people that when he lost even one game or whatever, it just eats at him so much that he would end up losing a whole set off momentum because his mental's fucked up. The same thing is true for Tweak in Smash Ultimate. He has a mental block sometimes where he'll be up 2-0 against somebody, he'll lose one game, and normally, well, I shouldn't say normally, but what a person should do is like recenter themselves. Like, okay, I was up 2-0, I almost closed it out. I end up losing a clutch game 3, right? That could have closed it out 3-0. He came back and won. He's up, now he has one game. And instead of being like, oh God, he's about to backdoor 3-0 me, which is I think what happens to people, you should just recenter yourself and say, okay, I'm just gonna do my best again, and I'm gonna clear this. I'm gonna close it. I'm gonna close this out. I'm gonna win 3-1. It's not a big deal. And even if you lose that one and it's 2-2, you're still like you have the counter pick. Like it's still in your favor. Like don't buckle. If I think one of the best things that I want people to start doing, especially in fighting games, and I've seen it work so many times, is if you are on the cusp of a backdoor 3-0, right? I think that for if it gets to game 5, stand up, grab a drink of water, like walk around a little bit and like clear your mind as best as you can and sit back down and play. Because I think that when you just go back to back to back into the games, the crumbling just keeps happening. It just perpetuates.
Yeah.
It like it you literally see it by the time game 5 comes around. It's like holy shit.
You can see it
man.
on their face.
You can see it on
Especially it's like in the middle of the back door.
Yo,
You lose the first stock
Tweak?
again. You can always see the face of the person who was up 2-0. You can just see like
if
the
you want to see
realization
what
set
Stang0 was
in.
talking about, watch Evo 2019, I believe it was, Tweak versus MK Leo Evo finals. Tweak is in winner's bracket, MK Leo's in loser's bracket. Tweak is up 2 games, and they're in game 3, and he is 3 stocks to 1. So I can't even begin to tell you how far in this game is. Like, this whole thing is almost over. Tweak is about to win Evo. He's up 2 games, and it's game 3. He has 3 stocks. MKLeo has 1 stock.
For the Yu-Gi-Oh viewers, you have a 2800 beater on the board with lethal on board. You have 3 back row, and your opponent has to get through it. That's where he's at right now.
They're fucking top decking.
Yes, they're fucking top decking. You have 3 back row, a 2800 beater. That's the position he's in right now.
And because MKLeo is such a god, he comes back that game, right? So he wins that game. So now it's 2-1. And Tweak immediately, visibly, starts to crumble in front. Like, you can see it visibly, like Stang0 was talking about. You can see it happening. And he proceeds to get backdoor 3-0 that set, but that's not the end. Like, it has to go to the next set because he was in lose, like MKLeo was in loser. So he won the first set, but you have to beat Tweak twice. And then Tweak gets destroyed again the next set. It's just like, I think he just let it mentally destroy him. And that's
one thing as well with that. The thing that many people don't really like fixate on, like they're fixating on the narrative of like, yeah, this player is like falling apart. I've been in this position before, and I know for a fact that Frazier knows exactly what I'm talking about because I talk about competition with Frazier, where when you're kind of like at the apex of like your game in a competitive environment, you kind of get a little like psychopathic in terms of the way that you like feed off someone's emotions.
Yes.
If you see somebody crumbling like that because of what you're doing to them, you want to do it so much more. You can literally be like, oh, like you're falling apart.
Yes.
I am going to make you fucking so upset. I want you to quit so badly after this set.
Yeah,
I'm going to do everything
shit
I can to make you feel even worse right now. Because that's the mental edge that you have on them. Like, you can just recognize the situation and be like, oh, like, I don't even need to continue playing this well, because obviously that's what I'm doing to do this to you.
Yeah,
I can play like 40% mental game now. Like, I don't even need to be playing this nice anymore. If I just keep the needle on the temperature of like how your mental is doing, you're crushed.
Yeah, that's a real thing. I definitely feed off other people's energy as a competitive player. And I've had sometimes to recenter myself in between games where I feel like I'm crumbling mentally a bit, where I won game 1 and then game 2, I thought I was going to win game 2 for the 2-0. And then somehow the game slips through my fingers and I end up losing it. And it's really frustrating when that happens because it's like, damn, I swore I was about to 2-0 this guy and somehow I end up losing. And now you're thinking to yourself, like, what did I do wrong? And you're so focused on that. And you're not really thinking like, okay, I almost 2-0'd him regardless. Like, he did come back, but I almost 2-0'd him regardless. Like, I can definitely win this third game. And you just take a breath, side deck, do whatever you got to do, and go back in it with a fresh mind. Like, I'm just going to play this game 3. Whatever happened game 1 and 2 is behind me now. I can't control it. It's already happened. Just play the game that's in front of you. Take everything one game at a time. That idea, take it one game at a time, has helped me top so many Yu-Gi-Oh events. I can't stress that enough. It just came back to me that I used to say this to myself. But I used to always say before every round, when they would say Yu-Gi-Oh players pairings for round 8 are now being posted, I would be like, as I'm walking to it, I would have my head kind of down. I'd be like, one game at a time, one game at a time, one game at a time. And I would go to the pairings. I sit down in front of my opponent, introduce myself, and I would think about it like, okay, game 1, here we go. And that just helps me to always think about it like, oh, I'm not necessarily worried so much about round 8. I'm just worried about this one game that I'm playing at this very moment.
Yeah. That's the one of the biggest advice that I'll give to anybody who is trying to pretty much like increase like their player power level and anything they want to do competitive is if you're down, I highly advise you, especially if you're playing against someone who's at the top of their game, you need to try your absolute best to not externally show that you're like getting frustrated or you're getting down, because I'm telling you from experience, if you do that, I will take full advantage of it. Yeah. I will literally just like take that energy that you're putting out there and just like redirect it back at you and just win off of that alone. So there's been so many sets that I've done something like that, and it's actually just like a super real thing.
So on that note, the greatest set of the entire weekend is the greatest singular game of the entire weekend had Stang0 in it. It's singles. This is Stang0 goes down. He's down 0-2.
Against Thunder's
playing against a Donkey Kong player.
Mm-hmm.
And then
one of the best players of all time, best Donkey Kong player.
You're playing Zero Suit. and then you switch to Donkey Kong, and I was like, what the fuck is happening? And the match starts, and you just obliterate. You like
Wait,
run a
so the
train
guy
on him.
is already playing Donkey Kong?
Yeah, the guy is
Yes.
a Donkey. He mains Donkey Kong, and he beats Stang0 2 games in a row. It's first to 3. He beats
Right.
Stang0 2 games in a row. He's using Zero Suit. Stang0 switches to DK, and then just rolls him, like obliterates him. And it's like
What?
the most convincing, hype, sexiest shit of all time. However, sadly, the guy does win the next game, and that's what knocks Stang0 out of the tournament. But that singular game was the most exciting game of the entire fucking tournament. So I wanted to bring that up on what we're talking about here. You were down 2-0, and then you made that DK switch, and it looked like you were primed for a big momentum shift. So I want to talk to you about your mindset in that specific situation, everything that was going on. Do you think you should have played DK the second game, or maybe you should have, after getting the momentum shift to DK win, switch back to a different character? I wanted to talk to you about that.
So a big thing of my journey right now in PM is that like I actually have a lot of characters that I can play in bracket. I can play Zero Suit, I can play Fox, and a character that I actually did recently pick up in the last few months is Donkey Kong. Really, really strong character, insane punish game, really good matchup spread. And he's also a thing about like Smash in general because of how technically taxing it is. Stop me if I'm wrong, but unlike Yu-Gi-Oh, I feel like if you are just not currently in the correct mind space to just be playing on your higher technical level, it's not like Smash where you can just like switch a character to a character you're proficient with, but a character that's easier. So you get rewarded more for just like the ease of use. You're in there with one deck.
Yeah.
If you're not playing technically well and you're playing something that's skill intensive, like the mountain that's falling, it's going to keep falling.
Yeah, but that's true. Actually, what you're saying.
The other thing is like, even in Yu-Gi-Oh, like let's say you go and you haven't put in your deck list yet, right? It's still not even beneficial to be like, all right, well I'm gonna play this deck. It's easier to pilot. It's just like that deck probably just isn't as good anyway, and so like
Yeah.
it being
It's,
easier to pilot probably wouldn't
It
really help
actually-
you that much.
It actually does suck in Yu-Gi-Oh. I'm glad you brought this point up. This is not something that I talk about often. But in Yu-Gi-Oh, yeah, you're locked into one deck for every tournament. I've never been to a Yu-Gi-Oh tournament where you're allowed to use more than one deck, which honestly, modern Yu-Gi-Oh should start to incorporate that in some way. I'm just thinking about it now. This actually sounds interesting to me. But yeah, you're locked into one deck. So if you've entered with a really skill-intensive deck, high ceiling deck, and you start to get fatigued, which has happened to me before. I actually lost an ARG. I was in top 4. I lost to the guy I drove with, Stephen McMurdy. He ended up winning the whole event. I gave him the Puppet Plant main deck tech and everything before the event. Like, we pretty much played the same exact deck card for card. And he ended up beating me in top 4 because I literally started to play worse. My match before him, I played against Ben Leverett, who was one of, at the time, Hoban's disciples. And that match was 2 hours and 30 minutes. A mirror match that was 2 hours and 30 minutes. Now, ARGs are not timed when you get the top cut. They're allowed to go as long as they go. So Jim was nice enough to let us go as long as we wanted, and me and him both like to, if you tell us that, we like to play at a very relaxed pace. And we also know each other too. So it's not like we're slow playing. It's like instead of the slow play, there's no clock. So we just took our time and thought out every single little bit of a move. I ended up beating Ben Leverett. It took everything out of me. Like, that was one of the hardest matches I ever played. It was so long that the camera cut off at like the hour 30 mark. So that match wasn't even fully recorded in history. It's a very, very long, grueling match. And so after that, that's top 8. I play against Steve McMurdy in top 4, and I'm mentally exhausted. And McMurdy has been waiting for, I think he destroyed his top 8 opponent in 30 minutes. So he's been waiting for 2 fucking hours to play me. Okay? So it'd be nice if like icing the kicker could work in Yu-Gi-Oh, but that's not a thing. Like, icing the person means you make them wait so long that they start to fall out of their they start to fall out of their,
they got out of their focus.
Yes, they lose their focus. So, and I've seen this happen in Smash too. In Smash Ultimate, one of the Japanese players blatantly iced an American player. He like got up, grabbed a drink of water, looked around the room, put his hands on his hips, didn't do anything for like legit 5 minutes. Everybody was like, what the fuck is he doing? And he just like iced the guy. Then he sat back down and beat the shit out of him. So you can ice people in certain games, but yeah, McMurdy got a 2-hour break. Meanwhile, they were like, Frazier, you just finished your match. We need you to go right to the stage to play your top 4 opponent because you took 2 hours, 30 minutes to play the last one. And they were like, please, for the love of God, do not let this match be another 2 hours. I was like, I mean, I can't control it, but hopefully it doesn't. The match ended up being over an hour long. And yeah, I ended up being just too mentally fatigued. If I could switch my deck to gadgets right there, I would have. And the granted, gadgets were absolutely unplayable in 2014 when this happened. But if I was given the option, because of how mentally strained I was, I would have switched my deck to gadgets in a heartbeat right there.
Yeah. So essentially what came down to it is that I ended up picking DK just because like I kind of, for lack of a better word, made the meta call that I think having a lot of characters in PM where you can switch up for a lot of matchups for either ease of use and or just like a better matchups, ones that you're a little bit more plus in. For me, like my main objectives in melee type games, PM, what is the matchup that I can get where like the punish game is the most rewarding? Because I think when it comes down to Smash for me now, punish game is everything. Neutral is all great and all, having a decent neutral, but if I hit harder than you and I'm a better player than you, I'm just going to beat you. I don't care how much better your character's neutral is. I don't care if you can wall me out forever. If I'm just a strictly better player than you, I'm probably just better in neutral than you are. So I can overcome the disadvantage of having a weaker neutral game if I kill you more often than you kill me off of a touch.
I agree with that in Smash.
Punish
I watched
game,
enough Smash to feel like that's true.
Yeah.
Punish game is huge. And in every fighting game, like even in Dragon Ball Fighters, which I play a lot of, like and a lot of team-based games and just fighting games in general that have meters, right? There's this concept, sometimes people like hold meter, like they die and they have full meter. And it's like you could have done something to like dump that meter and get a kill. Like there's a lot of times where a round will end and the guy has full meter and it's like if the 2 combos he did, he just used the super, he would have already won.
Yeah,
And,
that's true. People don't like to push sometimes. They are very conservative with their resources. And
Yep.
I get that, but like at the end of the day, I learned this from Silverman, I'm playing to win. I'm not playing to not lose.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's a big difference. If hear what I'm saying.
It is
I'm playing
much
to
different.
win. I'm not playing to not lose. Very different.
Yeah. So the thing about DK, just insane punish game. Overall, his ease in terms of his punish game is really good. And just like he's a little exploitable in neutral in terms of like some characters that are fast or have big disjoints, but his neutral ain't half bad. He also can just abuse a lot of tactics like crouch canceling and shit like that, like a lot better than other characters. And crouch canceling generally leads you into a grab, and DK has by far one of the best grabs, if not the best grab, in terms of its confirms and what it leads to.
Is it the cargo throw?
Yeah, so cargo throw combos into a lot of aerials, and also the forward and back throw or DI mix-ups that combo as well. In Ultimate, a lot of people would just see like cargo, up throw, ding dong, all that stuff.
Yeah.
In PM, it's like super crack. He kills most characters at 120 plus, no chance, no options. He can also just rob stocks at 80%. If you DI poorly on a forward and back throw, because he can combo into his up smash, which is one of the strongest smash attacks in the game. He's just bust. He's really, really good. So I picked him up. Now, my plan for Thunder's Reign going into that set was to actually DK Ditto him, because I think I could beat him in the DK Ditto. I think in terms of how I play DK, the shit I abuse with him in terms of his broken stuff, I think like I would pretty much be the best DK if I solo mained him, but like he kind of goes against my like ideology of like I want the easiest punish, easiest like I want the easiest time for me to implement my game plan, which is kill.
Because
I want to kill.
There's some matchups where playing DK is just like frustrating.
Yeah, I just don't want to grind. I don't want to grind with you. I want to kill you. It's as if I only want to play OTK decks in Yu-Gi-Oh. Like every matchup, if it's a matchup where I have to grind in, I just want to OTK instead.
That's understandable.
So going into it, so you go zero suit the first 2 games.
Did you psych yourself out?
I snake charmed myself. I played a set with Nogue earlier in that day, and I played really nice in zero suit DK. Like I 100% was going DK Ditto against Thunder's Reign, but after that Nogue set, Nogue's not as good as Thunder's, but I definitely snake charmed myself. I'm like, maybe I can do it this way. That's definitely been like a growth point for me in PM is between all the characters I play, I truly think there's a right decision to make with what character I'm supposed to play in certain matchups. And I'm figuring out more and more DK is a newer part of the element. So
Yeah.
I'm not surprised that I made a mistake, but not going DK Dittos was definitely a mistake.
So
It
is Fox? Do you not like the Fox matchup at all? Because I I saw your zero suit. Like you're good. You're good at the game. You had a good
yeah,
zero suit. But every time I watched you play, every time I saw you play Fox, I was like, man, like it felt like your Fox. You were clicking so much more when you played Fox. You were always like
hmm
moving
yeah.
more than with zero suit.
So
So
that would be a
is
thing
Fox
as
DK
well.
like what is that? Is
Where
that not
part of the
good?
trinity of the characters that I play, Fox is the oldest of it. So I've already figured him out. I know everything about where I'm playing Fox. My sets against Lucas, my sets against Sheik, like the reason why you felt that like that clear, really focused, confident in choices and efficient in play is because he's the oldest part of the trinity.
Yeah,
He's the
yeah,
most understood of where he needs to be. So when it comes to Zero Suit's like pretty much figured out. It's just more so just like practicing her because like I don't practice her as much as I do Fox because he's a little bit more important because he's harder to play.
yeah,
And like DK's the newest part of it, but DK is so freaking easy that like I honestly get a lot of games whenever I do go DK in bracket just because of like he's just so damn easy to play.
easier, yeah.
Yeah.
But
So
so on that note though, Fox DK, do you think that matchup isn't like does DK win that matchup? Is there a reason why you didn't consider Fox there?
Fox definitely wins the matchup, but it just goes against like what I personally view it in terms of I don't think that fits the game plan of what I want to do. It's like
Okay.
that matchup, DK can abuse a lot of crouch canceling. He chain grabs Fox 0 to death like on almost every stage. He gimps the shit out of Fox. He
So
abuses crouch canceling.
it's volatile.
It's too volatile, and I have to grind. Like up throw, up air, which is like a standard melee confirm with Fox, does not work on DK. He isn't entirely easy to edge guard in terms of being off stage. Um, it's just like it's a little too grinding. Like you can rob stocks against DK because like Shine he can't really recover like low because
Yeah,
Shine
yeah.
just sends you below the ledge and you're just kind of dead. But that's not happening every time. Like I'm looking at on like what's the average value that I would get out of this matchup, and it's like I would be grinding more often than I'm robbing.
Yeah.
And honestly, in a game like Smash, because of how volatile punish games are, I want to rob more than grind. I don't want to play straight up with anybody because if I'm just better than you and I get to rob you, then like you have no chance against me.
Damn.
That's just how I've kind of seen it. I've taken my game more focused where like I used to be really fixated on like neutral and like a lot of decision trees where now I just like I try to put a lot of pressure in terms of the matchup that I play and like the options that I choose where it's like I'm getting more of like an average like outcome instead of like something my opponent can influence a lot. If that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah, I mean, dude, the DK did it when I watched it, you lost the zero suit,
Mhm.
you kind of just lost. When you switch to DK, the fucking energy in the room, man. Like I was popping off, the commentators were popping off because
Yeah.
it was such a convincing momentum shift game.
Yeah.
And it looked like, you could have rode that momentum and killed them the next two games and kept going, but it seemed like he pulled himself together and he was like, wait a minute, I know how to use DK too.
So
yeah.
in Smash PM, I want to say, I'm guessing the heavies are actually viable because I saw you fighting against the fucking Charizard too, and that did not look like it was easy for you at all.
Yeah, that's like kind of that's a matchup that I think kind of looked more grindy than it actually is. I think there's just some efficiency things. Like I've historically had like a pretty bad like matchup against like that particular player Kais.
Okay.
Like I've lost to him twice now. First time was like kind of bad. This time I was obviously up 3-0 and he sweeped me.
Yeah, that's what
Um
I did see that correctly, right? You were up.
yeah. So in general like that's just something I have to kind of like pull together. But I think Zero Suit's the correct choice in this case. But yeah, heavies are pretty good in PM. It's not like heavy dominate it, but like a lot of the characters in terms of like what traditionally is good in melee, like all the melee top tiers are comboable. Like I'm talking about
Yeah.
top tiers. I'm not talking about like everyone in the top 8 because like Yoshi's not really comboable. Peach is like not really comboable for a lot of characters. But the top tier, Sheik, Falcon, Fox, Falco, Marth, like those are comboable characters. A lot of the time in PM though, there's characters that you can't really combo all that well. Wario is a pretty big
Yeah, there's some
example.
awkward guys.
Donkey Kong is a little difficult to combo. Even though he's a big body, it's like surprisingly hard to get him in a position where he's vulnerable to get hit a lot of times.
That's interesting.
And some of the big bodies in PM,
heavies are definitely on the stronger side. They're definitely the strongest iteration of their archetype.
Yeah, like out of all of them, it's probably PM and then Smash Ultimate.
Because PM was community balanced, and they were trying to make a game like the most fun and most balanced like Smash game.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the heavies have some love in them, so that they're not like DK's really nice. He's been nice for a while. Bowser's actually pretty nice. I don't know where he's on the tier list, but Bowser does some pretty cool stuff. He's got some unique things. The way his command grab works is really cool. And
he's not like high tier or anything like that. But the thing about PM that I actually like the most, like even though there are some characters that are like pretty obnoxious in the way that they just play, they're just kind of degenerate in nature, like Ganondorf and Bowser and like some other characters. The thing I love about PM is that I really personally think that the game currently isn't there right now. It could be where this isn't true, but I think there's like not even like a D tier level character in this game. I think every character can realistically, with a good player, can make a top 8 right now.
Yeah,
I think you can see a DDD. I think you can see a Ganondorf. I think you can see like a Squirtle, and these aren't like characters that are like considered like even good. Like DDD is generally regarded as one of the worst characters, but like the power level of the cast is just like really well done. It's just some of the top tiers are just like a little too much is the main thing.
Yeah, and I think what I'm noticing when I watched you play PM at the theater, the summit, like Charizard, the heavy that I saw you fighting against, this is true in all of the games, but they're just really hard to fucking kill.
Yes.
Like, he would just live way longer than you. And that was valuable in that matchup against Zero Suit. He would just live longer.
Yep.
So like you come down from the platform, and the Charizard is at like 120, but one hit is not going to kill his Charizard. Basically, it still was like a fucking fight, and he put some damage on it before he would die. Before you
he did like 30 to 40, and then that's a prime percent for him to continue like to the next stock.
Yes, and it just continued like that. I was like, I noticed what's happening. You're just killing him later. Then he's killing you. He's obviously killing you earlier because fucking Zero Suit is light, I assume. She's fast as shit. So like she's not the hardest character to kill. And then you have Charizard here where you're hitting him with all types of crazy shit. Now, even the commentators thought like, oh, he's dead. And then he would just DI, I guess, and just not die and come back. And like every time that happens, it's just really frustrating. I think also mentally too, when you think like they're dead right there and they're just not.
I was going to say, that's a very demoralizing thing. In Smash Ultimate, my original like character I was going to main in Smash Ultimate was Young Link. Because like I love Young Link, I love Zelda, he's so cool. Young Link just cannot kill. And so I remember I would play games of Smash Ultimate where I get my opponent to like 170.
Yep, that's an average percent that he kills at.
And then like I don't get my kills till 170, but I die at 90. And it became
because he's so light.
Because like Young Link's really good. He can control but the amount you have to grind, like what Nick was saying earlier, Young Link is very good, but he's a grinder. He doesn't just win. And so, like, even though Ganon's worse, I just fucking switch to Ganon, and it's like, technically this is a worse character, but when I hit you, I kill you.
Yeah, meanwhile, fucking
my name is Scam, my name's not Grind. That's my name. I want to scam.
Taking stocks away at like 50.
Yes.
Like, if Violet hits you off stage with a Nair and follows it up with a fair, you are dead at 50. You got hit by Nair at 50 near the ledge. You fell off the stage, and I ran out in there and fared you. You are dead. Like your character, MKLeo's done it so many times. It's one of the most classic kill confirms at this point, and it's like super ignorant.
So getting somebody to 170 just isn't happening. Like right now, I play Ganon, I play Terry, Kazuya. I try to play Sora, but he's so light and floaty. It's hard. Like he's just not a character that I'm not usually good with.
The game's floaty enough for me. Like I can't do that.
Did you
like Ganon, Terry, Kazuya?
Ryu is slowly creeping back into the meta, and so people are playing him a lot more than they're playing Ken, and they're saying that he might be like the best fighting game character in the game now, because I believe the finals of a Japanese tournament on Golden Week, which was last week, I believe. Golden Week just happened in Japan. And Steve won the tournament, so now everyone's saying like, "Oh, Steve."
I need people to stop crying. There's so many people that I swear I don't even really follow Ultimate that closely.
Yeah.
Every other month, I hear talk about people wanting to ban Steve, and I'm like, you guys have to fucking relax.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
Steve does not
when
need
it
to be
when it
banned.
comes to Steve, honestly, I love him because when I watch Ultimate, I like watching really high level play, but everything else, like I'm good on all that.
yeah. Yeah, kind of
And the
same
thing
for me
about
too. I don't
Steve
really
is that
watch pools.
I love the chaotic, like, just aura that he just adds
He
to
was
the
so
game. Like
sick.
every
Steve
time
was
there's a
legit
Steve on the,
sick.
like, I don't think he's sick. I think he's super whack,
so
but
sick.
I love every time he's
So
playing
you
because
should
I know the
watch-
other player is suffering. I'm
There's a-
like,
there's a
yes, this
15-year-old
is
named-
exactly what I want to see.
There's a 15-year-old named Acola.
Yes, and he Fortnite dances every time he takes a stock.
Okay.
That's the top level Steve player I need to see.
That's
Okay, so you know of
it's
this
so
person.
cringe, but it's so
Yes.
sick.
He's 15 years old. He took a tournament over Proto Banham, all the top Japanese players that we know, like every single one.
Mhm.
Ken, T, everyone in Japan who's a name, like their top 5. Outside of the only one who wasn't there was Zachary. Zachary's been playing Pokemon United, so he's taking a break from Smash.
Oh no.
Yeah, that's what everyone
Well,
else
he's
said.
gone. He's
Yeah.
gone.
So he's kind of taking a break from Smash, but everyone else who's top 5 in Japan, this guy beat in this tournament and during Golden Week with Steve, and his finals match was against a Ryu, and people were like, "How the fuck did this happen?" But the Ryu just played really, really nice. And I was watching some of the matches earlier today, and I was listening to a podcast called Tweak Talks, which is featuring like Ultimate's player Tweak and a couple other people, and they were just saying like how Steve could potentially, as his tech is developing every month, he could potentially be the best character in the game. Because at first, when he first came out, everybody was like, it's kind of a meme, right? Like he's not real. Every month, there's been a new Twitter post from people who just lab Steve that has pushed his meta. And this is what I love about Smash. This is something that I fucking love about Smash. You have your initial perceptions of a character when they first come out, or just when the game first comes out and everyone's already there in the roster, right? Before the DLC even starts. And everybody has their opinions and their thoughts about who's the best, who's the worst, who's unplayable, who's whatever, right? And they put them into these boxes, and then months and months go by, even sometimes years go by.
Oh yeah.
And some new tech comes out, and it just it increases that character stock by so much. So this recently, all this new Steve tech has been coming out, and it's been pushing his meta, and everyone's afraid. And also, Gimmer just came out with some new tech for Smash Ultimate in general. Like that's not even character specific. It's called the Slingshot. And
that shit is nice.
It's really, really nice. So this is going to change Ultimate. Like this is one of Ultimate's biggest changes, because this is movement, is generic movement for every single character in the game. Some benefit from it more than others. The same way wave dashing is like akin to wave dashing. Is like it benefits
some characters slide really far. Some players don't. Some characters don't. Yeah.
For example, Lucas slingshotting, it looks ridiculous. Like it looks like a glitch with him for real because he goes so far. Whereas a character like Fox doesn't really need slingshotting, to be perfectly honest. Fox is so hard to punish in Smash Ultimate already. He already has such a oppressive game that he doesn't need the perks from the slingshot. Like obviously he can use it, but he doesn't need it. What I love about it though, and this is so cool to me, is that initially the buffer system was considered a detriment to Ultimate. It's one of the worst things about the game for most players. And essentially what they've done, what Gimmer has done, is found a way to exploit the buffer system. Is the way that Slingshot is possible. It's not possible in any other game. It's possible because of the buffering system. It buffers like a RAR on the earliest possible frame after an action. So like essentially it only works because the game is picking up what you're pressing while something else is happening and registering it to come out next. So it's not humanly possible in every other game, but in this game, it's like it's an exploit of the buffering system. So now they're using the buffering system to make the game better. And I think that's amazing. Like that's really fucking cool that it's being now used in a way. Like there are some things that buffering does do really well. I know I used to play Inkling as my main. Up throw up air, you can buffer it. I grab you, right? And while I'm pummeling, I can literally flick my C-stick up and hold it. And then when I press up, and like as I'm holding it, my character will jump. Like if I have tapped into it, like my character will jump up with the up air. And then I just press the A button and they'll just do up throw up air for me. Like I don't have to do anything. It's really simple. So just stuff like that, I think is really cool that the Smash community will find a way to push the meta of even one character and make that character marginally better. It's not going to be like, oh, this breaks the game so much. Like it's not the discovery of, let's say, L canceling, but it's enough to push the game further than it was a week ago. And they have videos of MK Leo labbing it, Tweak labbing it, Esam, oh my god, Pikachu. Like, there's a lot of the top players using it already. They showed Pyramithra can do it. They said that for sorties, it's insane. Like Marth, MKLeo was labbing it with Marth, and they were like, Marth actually looks like he's decent. Like legitimately, you couldn't punish him fucking crossing up your shield and throwing out aerials. He goes so far away from you. It's like, I can't. He's already using a sword, right? So they were already kind of safe. But now it's like, there's just forget about it. So it's just really cool to see with the slingshot, the quick shot, and all this other stuff. They got like 4 different types of shots. But I just love that Smash as a community that does that. Like, they push and push and push. And like, to some extent, this happens in Yu-Gi-Oh! Too. Like, decks will get tweaked as the format goes on, but formats end so fast in Yu-Gi-Oh! Right? They go like 3 months, and then a ban list comes out. And whatever was wrong with the deck, or whatever somebody might have been able to fix, if it went on longer, it just gets patched with an actual ban list.
Yeah, that's something that it's like, obviously it's good, but it's something that in the current video game culture that I hate. I do hate patches to some degree. Like,
Me
I hate
too.
when they're too often. Like, patches are nice, but I like when patches are a really long view. So there's a culture that happens in a lot of competitive games. Like, you see in Overwatch and fucking League of Legends and just every game, and a lot of fighting games, Dragon Ball, etc., where Guilty Gear Strive, something happens, something's really good, and then a bunch of the player base goes like, "Oh, this is terrible. I'm just gonna wait for it to get patched." Like, "Oh, I'm not playing right now. I'm gonna wait for the patch. This needs to get patched. That needs to get patched. Oh, that's broke." And it's like in other games like Melee, where it couldn't get patched, people just kept playing the game, and eventually they figured out like, "Oh, I can actually deal with it this way. You can do it." And so nothing is as broken as you think it is the first week that it happens, right? Like, you give it a longer view, and there's time for it to get better.
People thought Sephiroth was top 5. It's funny because one of the earlier Tweak Talk podcasts, let's say in his first 10 or so episodes, Sephiroth had come out. Sephiroth had been out for a couple months, and they were doing tier lists. This is a common thing in every fighting game community. You know, tier list, it gets a lot of clicks, a lot of views. So they did a tier list podcast episode, and everyone on the podcast, there's 4 people talking always. Everyone on the podcast has Sephiroth is top 5, maybe even number 1, right? Sephiroth is not even top 10, not even top 20 in Smash Ultimate now. Like, people realize Sephiroth has a lot of problems. He can't really swing. His frame data is actually horrible. When we knew his frame data was horrible, but like, people were like, "Oh, one wing makes him like way higher on the tier list," which is true. It's just that one wing doesn't take him very far because they also made him light as fuck. He's as light as Mewtwo. So no matter what he has, one hit from Byleth is still killing Sephiroth, one wing or not. And I'm going to get one hit. Like, it's not the craziest thing. We're both using long range weapons. Byleth's Fair and Bear are far as shit. Byleth has some.
You can only play so much to not get hit.
Yeah, like,
until it happens.
And when he swings, it's such a commitment. Like, any sword move, and Tweak is a Sephiroth player, right? He plays Sephiroth and Diddy. So he speaks to like the problem why he pretty much has to drop Sephiroth in tournament. Like, he doesn't use Sephiroth in tournaments. He said the reason why I can't really play the character is because at the end of the day, every single time you see me hit somebody, I had to guess. Whereas there are things with Diddy that aren't possible for you to react to, and they're not possible for you to get out of. Like, this is a frame trap, or this is just a safe aerial. Like, this back air on your shield is safe. It either hits you, you either jump and I hit you with the back air, or you shield it and you can't do anything after that. So like, Sephiroth doesn't have anything like that. He can't just throw out sword attacks for free.
He can only abuse his range, but they're all too slow. They're not like Marth, where like he at a moment's notice he closes down space because the move is fast.
Yes,
for Sephiroth, it's like a full commitment to try to control the space.
Sephiroth doesn't have any good auto cancels either. So like, when he throws out a fair or an up air, I don't know if you ever seen what happens after Sephiroth throws out an up air, but he crouches after he lands on the ground and he stays there for a good.
Yeah, his landing lag is really long.
Is unreal how long an up air takes him to recover from. Now, granted, his up air's range is insane, right? So like, they tried to make him balanced, but they overdid it. So he just needs a bit more work. I'm not going to count him out because, again, the whole point of this is that like the meta keeps developing, and they were saying, well, the slingshot could really help him possibly. But it's just interesting that at one point people thought Sephiroth was the best character in the game. They had him as top 2, like next to Joker. And he's just not even, I don't think he'll ever be as close to Joker and Pikachu, like ever. I don't think that will ever, I don't know what will happen in the future, but without a really big patch to the game, right? I don't think that his meta could be pushed far enough to make him on Joker and Pikachu's level. I don't think that's a hot take.
One thing I think that a lot of people don't really think about, especially fighting game players, is that when they say meta of like what characters in meta, they're only looking at like what's actually good right now instead of like what gets good because of what is currently good right now. I think characters have different exponential value based on what is currently
That's true.
thought upon to be
Because
good right now.
apparently Sephiroth ruined Steve.
Yeah.
Apparently,
so it's like
that is one of his best
if
matchups.
Steve is the in meta like, you know, rising character right now,
Yeah.
the stock of Sephiroth gets a lot more valuable because if there's more Steves trying to pick up Steve, or there's just like more Steves in general, Tweet could be like, "Oh, I'm losing to Steve. I'll go Sephiroth. This is a good matchup."
Apparently, Sephiroth, I guess, because like Steve is a very a campy player, right? Like it's a campy character naturally by just nature of the character. And Sephiroth does well. He could do things.
Anyone who doesn't want to run Sephiroth down, he is cool with that. He's like, you know what? This is fine.
Sephiroth loses to Fox, for example, and Sheik, and characters who are fucking in his face constantly and not afraid to get close because they know that he can't really swing his sword, right? It's such a commitment to swing your sword. So it's like, you're a swordie, but are you really a swordie? Like Tweak said, I don't even consider Sephiroth to be a swordie anymore. Like he said, I think his disadvantage is that bad. He can't do anything out of disadvantage either. That's another thing. Sephiroth has nothing out of disadvantage. He has no move to get. If Sephiroth is above you, do what you want. He can't do anything out of disadvantage. So like, there are just problems with the character that they thought that one wing was like the end all be all to take away, because like you get an extra jump, your damage goes up 30%, you're faster, and all these cool things. But at the end of the day, it's like
me on. I could have told him. I remember me and you were talking about this early on in Sephiroth being made. Sephiroth coming out, is that it's unfortunate because you can tell that Sephiroth was like Joker was made.
Yep.
And all the DLC after Joker was balanced around Joker.
Yep.
Like if Sephiroth came out before Joker, one wing wouldn't go away. You know what I mean? But like one wing just goes away. One wing
would never ever go away. Also, it would come on earlier.
He would just have less landing lag as well.
He would have way less landing lag. It would come on earlier. There would be if Sephiroth was the
he would have
DLC,
throw combos.
He would have throw combos that are actually like undeniable.
Like across the cast, undeniable, yeah.
Like Joker does. Joker literally can down throw, forward air, down throw, back air, up throw, up air. Every character in the game. Like Joker has. No one plays Joker right now. It's still this is by far the strangest thing for me, because he is potentially the best character in the game. Like it is a high chance that Joker is the actual best character in Smash Ultimate, and literally no one at a top level is playing him. Joker hasn't been in the top 8 of any tournament in the last like 2 years. Like that's not even cap. Like Joker has just
you know why that is? Because we talked about this when we watched Summit. I feel like it's just this is confirmation bias for me, but I feel like it's just more to my thought of like Joker scams when he has Arsene, but Arsene isn't here all the time. Byleth scams every time she's on the screen.
Byleth is a scam.
But a lot of people don't even play Byleth either.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is she's an example of a character that's like she's not here to fuck around and play the game.
Yeah.
She's trying to end it now.
What I think it is, personally, is that I think Smash is still a game where people really like to identify with their character.
Yep, I love
and they
that.
really, really like certain characters. So even if Joker, for example, in Melee, Puff is absurd. But there's more Falco players than Puff players, even though it's a lot harder at a high level. At low level, Falco like stomps. But at high level, it's harder to win with Falco than it is with Puff. But like a lot of people still don't play Puff in Melee. And I personally think it's because like when people get into Melee, they just want to have fun. And like a lot of times when you get into Melee, because you saw Marth do something crazy.
Yeah,
or Falco do something crazy.
For me.
It's rarely that you get into Melee because you saw like Puff and Peach fucking not interact for 3 minutes. Like that's not why people get into Melee. So Puff and Peach are insane, but there's so many less Puff Peach players because they're not what draws people to Melee.
Yeah, I think what you said, the first thing though is the key. People identify with who they play with in Ultimate hard as shit. Like Tilde is a Falco player. Cola is a Roy player, right?
Yeah.
Spargo started online with Cloud. Aegis came out, Pyramithra. He switched to them for a while. Could not get a tournament win with them at all, right? Even when he was really close, MKLeo just wouldn't let him win a single tournament with Aegis. Not one. Not
Nope.
one. Stole candy
said
from a
no.
baby on many occasions, right? We watched it for
You
a
know
year
why?
straight.
Because he was Robin. He said, "I'm a scam with Byleth.
And
You're
then,
gonna try to play honest with Mithra."
And then Spargo switched back to his true main, right? His true main. Who did you really start playing this game with? It was Cloud. He's been winning tournaments. He just won the last tournament with Cloud. And he's been playing with Cloud constantly, as opposed to just playing Pyramithra, who people think is also maybe the best character in the game, right? So it's like, it's really interesting to see how, like, Esam, for example, only plays Pikachu, and this is across every game. It's not like he's like, oh, Pikachu's the best in this game, so I'm gonna play Pikachu in this game. No, he plays him always.
He always plays Pikachu.
He identifies with Pikachu. You think of Esam, you think of Pikachu.
Melee.
Sure. But you think of
he
Pikachu, you think of Esam. At least lately, I'll say. Since in Melee, who did he play?
He plays
plays
name.
Samus.
That's what Esam is. It's Eric Samus.
Okay.
His name is literally, but he plays Pikachu in every other game.
Yes. So he's a Pikachu main, like, mostly, and a lot of players who play Ultimate, like there's a Sephiroth player. His name is Ned, and he only plays Sephiroth basically. There's a guy named Bacon. I think he plays Dr. Mario, who actually did really well at this last. He was last tournament or one before that. There was 2 back to back. There was like Genesis, then there was Pound, I think, and he got like top 16, I think, with Dr. Mario. Dr. Mario is considered maybe the worst character in Ultimate. Like there's a case that he is possibly the worst character in the entire game, like even worse than Little Mac. So like, because Little Mac, they actually compared them. They say, well, let's compare him to who people might think is the worst character in the game, Little Mac. Little Mac has the best air drift in the entire game. In the air, when Little Mac is coming towards the stage, he moves faster than any other character in the game, basically. So like, it's like Little Mac, Jigglypuff, Yoshi, you know, the characters who you expect to move, but people don't know that Little Mac actually drifts towards the stage better than any other character in Ultimate, essentially.
That's a fucking rant. They just literally won't buff his recovery moves, but they'll just give him Jesus drift. That is a goddamn rant.
Well, actually, in this game, because in Smash 4, he would do side B, he goes in a free fall.
Yeah.
And his up
he can act out of it now, right?
He can do side B, then up B now. So like he's like Fox now, how Fox can do side B, then up B. So his recovery got better. It's still not the best recovery, but in terms of recoveries, now we're comparing him to Dr. Mario. Let's keep this in the context. Kenny probably knows.
Dr. Mario's recovery is awful.
I'm sure at some point Kenny tried to play Dr. Mario on Ultimate, and you probably know his recovery is fucking unplayable.
Yes.
It is, and I think this is objective, it is the worst recovery in Ultimate. I think Dr. Mario's recovery is the worst recovery in the entire game out of 80 fucking 6 characters. Dr. Mario's recovery is that bad. I don't think you can name another character.
It's like obviously the worst too. It's because it's like there's so many characters you could just be like, oh well, what about this one?
Ganon's though. I think Ganon's recovery is worse than Doc's.
Bro, no. Ganon actually goes way further, and like Ganon's recovery
even with Tornado though, because Doc's Tornado still does something in Ultimate. Like his Tornado gives height.
The problem is that it leaves him so vulnerable.
Yeah, I haven't used Doc since like early in.
It's so much.
You know what, Kenny? You haven't used Doc because you're traumatized.
So
you're not remembering.
Edge guarding has gotten so much better. Go ahead.
I just don't like him. I don't like him in Ultimate. The main thing, because like I mained him in 4, he was one of my mains. The main big thing that I don't use him in Ultimate is they nerfed his up tilt. His up tilt doesn't scoop. Like it only kind of hits like above him. It doesn't really scoop from in front of him anymore. And just that one change made me like not really enjoy playing him. And so
they were talking about this, like his Tornado, right? This was brought up in I believe it was Tweak Talks where this discussion even happened. The problem with Dr. Mario and like why has the worst recovery is because if Dr. Mario's ever forced to recover low, you know he has to do the Tornado. It's so blatantly exploded because edge guarding has gotten better. And this happens with every Smash game. Like this is obviously, you guys know this, but just for people who are listening to this podcast, edge guarding in all Smash games gets better as time goes on. People just learn how to edge guard better, and they learn how to edge guard specific characters even better than that, right? So like what's happening now, because the meta is heavy on the fucking Byleths of the world, the Pyramithras, they're just going out against him because they know he can't do anything if he has to recover low. Like if he's low coming up to the stage, you know he has to do jump, Tornado, up B. Like that's what he has to do. There's no secret that's going to happen. And the Tornado is just really, really open to getting dared or just gimped by a lot of dumb shit in Ultimate right now. So he's just not like, I saw Steve go out and put a block right there, and that shit was hilarious. Like he just went out, left the little block.
That's what I'm saying. Steve is sick, yo. I love the blocks.
He put a block out,
see, the thing is, you're saying sick. I think it's sick for the same reason. Like it makes me sick to my stomach.
Nah,
but I also love it. Like, I'm telling you, like, I need the top, like, the best player in the game to play Steve. He's 15, and he dabs every time he takes a stock.
Hell yeah.
Like, I
That's the
need
thing,
Is this
people.
fact? Does he actually do that?
No. I'm entirely memeing, but this
Okay.
is what I want. Like, this is
Yeah.
literally what I want.
That's the
You
thing.
said
Like, I'm
Fortnite dances the first time.
Yes, I want him to fucking floss like every time he takes a stock. It would like make me so goddamn happy because I know everyone, as far as the general community, would just hate it, and it's just like I don't know, something about it just it's a sick pleasure that I just want to see.
Like he's definitely a character that I would hate to play against, but
Oh my god, I would
I've
love to play
never
against
played
him,
against
but I
him
would
yet.
love to watch people try to fight
I've never
against
played
him.
against a Steve yet in my entire life. I've been playing Ultimate since it came out. I don't play it often, but I have never played against Steve, not once, because no one in our group is gay enough to play him. So it's just kind of like he just kind of like stays unpicked. Like, no, but that's what it is. It would have to be.
we're also not young enough, right? Like that's the
Yeah.
thing that's cool is that he's you know
He
the
really is
banjo
the
for
young man's
younger-
character.
Yeah, the younger
Why
people
is
love
that?
him.
Oh, it's because Minecraft is a young game.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a young game. Like
That's why-
in general, like to the audience
Oh,
of
I
the
didn't
game.
know that.
Yeah.
I thought Minecraft was like
Like you
our
have
time.
you
I
have
thought
you have
we grew up with that.
it is really
we
technically
didn't,
like
we didn't grow up with Minecraft. Minecraft came out like what 10 years ago, 11 years
yeah, no,
ago?
what I'm
Oh,
saying
we
is
definitely
that
didn't grow up with
it
it. We were
it is
grown.
relative to our time as far as like we were kind of here for like the beginning and
Okay,
like
I
really when
didn't-
it got big.
No,
But
no,
it
but
is
what I thought-
the young man's game.
I
Yeah.
thought
Yeah.
it was like I thought me and Kenny
So-
when we were 14, Minecraft was out. That's just not
No,
true.
No, you're fucking
This is-
slow.
This is what I'm saying though, and this is why I do think like some of my friends that are my age were super hating when Steve got at it, and they were like super hating. I was like, you need to not do that. I was like, you have to understand that Steve being added to the game, like that's the banjo for the generation under us. Like we
Yeah.
have friends that are 22, 23 years old. They literally grew up playing Minecraft. So Steve getting in the Smash is like
I have no idea.
a really big moment for them. Whereas like for us, we don't care. We didn't grow up with Minecraft, but for them, it's really big and important. Like
Yeah.
don't be a corny boomer and be like, oh, Minecraft shouldn't be in Smash. Like just relax.
Yeah.
Like
Listen,
you're excited
Minecraft
Banjo's
can be in
in.
Smash
Those
as long-
22-year-olds don't give a fuck about Banjo. They're like, who
Listen.
the fuck is this stupid ass bear?
Yeah.
Get him out of the game.
Listen, Steve can be in Minecraft as long as he's putting people on minecarts, throwing them off the stage, blocking the recovery with blocks, and making people salt.
So-
He can do all that. I'm
Real
fine
quick,
with that.
This is a bit of a side switch. But we're getting close to 2 hours, and before we end up wrapping up, we can still talk about something after this. But I wanted to touch on something real quick. Going back to PM Theater, at the end, after you lost, you gave an interview, and you talked about how lawn chair has reach. For anybody that doesn't know, Stang0's original tag, like his tag in Smash, was lawn chair, and he was talking about it. And I remember years ago when you decided to change lawn chair, not your tag anymore, you just went by Stang0. I was like, dude, don't do it. Lawn chair is such a sick tag. And then like it's really funny. So you're at the tournament, you're talking about how you're like, oh, some people people knew lawn chair, and then like one of the other commentators, I don't remember his name, but he was like, nobody knows lawn chair. I'm watching and I'm getting hyped because I was like, lawn chair is the best. But I'm looking at Twitch chat.
Yep.
When you said that you were lawn chair, the entire Twitch chat was like, wait, that's lawn chair? That's Meta Knight dive kick lawn chair? That's
Yeah.
dive kick lawn chair? That's Meta Knight lawn chair? Like the whole fucking Twitch chat knew who lawn chair was and knew about like Meta Knight dive kick lawn chair. Like the whole fucking Twitch chat was piping up, and I was like, God damn it, man. God
It
damn
has
it.
reached. Like the funny thing too is that I was a horrible player at the time. It's just like that's the beautiful thing about the Smash scene that I think like no other esport or really any competitive game can even emulate. It's like even the scrubs are fucking famous.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
there's just literally bad players. Like a perfect example of this, even though this is Mango's friend, Dunk, is like
yeah.
he's just pretty much just like almost in a sense just like a normal California player. He's never really placed anywhere well, but he's like a fucking meme like legend in like the California PM scene. Like people love Dunk, everyone knows about him. Like Mango shits on him on a stream and he makes fun of him like back in the day, and it's like that's just like I don't know, it's just something that I don't think I really ever see like in any other kind of
thing that's
scene.
cool though is because there's some everybody knew lawn chair, but they also knew the meta that you played in, which was the
Yeah.
Meta Knight dive kick. And here's the thing: you say you were terrible back then, but there's merit to how good you were in that. For example, Frazier, when he won YCS Atlanta, he won with Gravekeepers. Frazier, would you argue that 2 years, 3 years, 4 years later, you were a better Yu-Gi-Oh player than when you won the YCS?
Yeah, way better.
But when you won the YCS, in part, it was that meta call.
Yes.
When you were playing Meta Knight as lawn chair, you were one of the only players that realized how absolutely unfucking fair his dive kick was. Meta Knight doesn't even have this move anymore. But they gave Meta Knight a dive kick.
They gave him an
in PM.
entirely different move because it was that broken.
When lawn chair was ruining people, like that's why you were known as Meta Knight dive kick lawn chair. Because even though you're a better player now, you saw that, like, wait a second, for whatever reason, the rest of the community doesn't realize this move is unfucking
There really wasn't
fair.
Meta Knight players. That is true. That is true.
Yeah, like nobody was
during
playing
that time
Meta
when I
Knight.
played.
And I remember at that time, our group, we were calling the game Project Meta Knight. But like nobody else was.
Yeah. Yep.
So wait, in Project M, Meta Knight had a dive kick, or this is
So
in PM.
Like with PM, because what Kenny was talking about, where like the patches would add new characters. A lot of these characters got like redesigns to some of the actions of their kit. Meta Knight obviously had a shit ton of problematic moves from Brawl. So they've replaced this broken ass Brawl down air with what they thought a normal down air, but it was literally
what's cool about it is the other thing that PM did, like Sakurai does, is they tried to like give people moves that made sense with other games. For example, DK, they got rid of that stupid dash attack that he has where he like puts his foot up.
Fucking stanky foot.
He puts his foot up.
He does a barrel roll.
They gave him the roll. And then they actually, in Smash 4, gave DK the roll, but PM did it first. And that roll is from Donkey Kong's games. Anyway.
They also, like, as far as, like, another thing from PM.
I think I know. Go ahead.
I'm trying to think. I'm actually trying to think the exact example is that there's actually another move as well that was in PM first that they also pretty much stole.
They gave DK and Diddy's dash attack very cool mechanics. In Donkey Kong Country, if you do their dash attack, DK like rolls and Diddy does a cartwheel. You can do it off of a ledge, and then you can carry that momentum into a jump. So in Donkey Kong Country, you can't air jump. But if you're in your roll, you can cancel your roll into a jump. They actually gave that like a momentum, that like a momentum ability to DK and Diddy's dash attack in PM, where you can roll off of the ledge and like carry your momentum. But anyway, in Kirby games, Meta Knight has like this attack where he puts a sword under him and he basically does a dive kick. So they gave Meta Knight that move that he has in other games, and they gave it to him in PM. And then Stang0, you can finish talking about what that meant for the game.
The move was just cracked. It was unacceptable. It was broken. There was also other things that were unacceptable and broken about Meta Knight.
I want to see this move now. Like, I actually want to see
what version.
You know what, Frazier? After the podcast, I'll load up old PM because I have a build of it, and I'll show you like everything that was cracked about Meta Knight in that version. One thing I want to kind of take some time to talk about, because I've been on a journey, as you know. I've been on my own Yu-Gi-Oh journey.
Mm-hmm.
And I just have to say, when we were talking about like mindsets and like competitive nature and stuff like that, an interesting thing I thought about like today when I was thinking about what we'll talk about on the podcast. When we talked about on my first Smash episode, and you kind of even mentioned it a little bit here about like the difficulty of like playing Smash, like a melee type engine game and stuff like that, and like how you respect that because of the level of difficulty, because you know what it takes like to be like a high level competitor in like a game. The inverse for me wasn't even really that obvious because I never played Yu-Gi-Oh, but you tried to like pick up Smash when you were already like, you know, a god of Yu-Gi-Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Now that I am playing Edison format and like trying to improve at Yu-Gi-Oh, I now fully realize like what it took and like what it really is for like how good you know you are at Yu-Gi-Oh. The game is fucking so goddamn hard, and I am so damn bad.
The game
it is such a difficult game. You actually said it perfectly when I told you. When I told you, I was like, you know, I'm not even that like bad at like Hearthstone, like as far as like card games. So I feel like I can kind of understand card games, but I don't know why I'm like so bad at Yu-Gi-Oh. And you said it perfectly, and I just understood immediately. You were like, well, the difference between Hearthstone and Yu-Gi-Oh is that Hearthstone's a resource-based game, and Yu-Gi-Oh, you could play all your cards if you want.
Yeah,
You can
that's true.
you can play all 6 cards you draw for turn, and you can play them all incorrectly.
You can play every
one
card
turn.
on turn 1. That's something
You-
that a lot of people, like Magic players, don't like about Yu-Gi-Oh! Is like they'll talk about how like they'll just Magic whatever. They'll talk about how just like in Yu-Gi-Oh! You can just do whatever you want.
Yeah.
And they'll talk about how that's a bad thing. And in some ways it is a bad thing, but a lot of mechanics in any game there's a pro and a con to it. In Yu-Gi-Oh! The fact that you can play every fucking card on turn 1 is a bad thing because it can be unfair, like how overpowering that can be.
Which is where it is right now.
But it's also a good thing in that you can have somebody play all their fucking cards and they don't know what they're doing. And now they just expended all. Whereas like Magic forces you to play slow. You can't exhaust your hand on turn 1.
Yeah, like Magic to me doesn't become really skill intensive until late game. Like mid to late game is where Magic. In the beginning, you are literally building your mana pool. Like every turn you could play one land, and you're just slowly building your mana pool. Where it gets really interesting, where Magic matches come to life, is when you guys both have like 6 to 8 mana, and you can do many things. And so you start doing things where you play out all your mana except 2, because at 2 mana you can use a counter spell from your hand. And so it's like, even if you don't have a counter spell, you still leave 2 mana up to pretend you do. That way your opponent has to play around it. If you tap all your mana in Magic, I now know you can't possibly counter me. There's nothing in the game that does that. So like, I can just play my hand out and beat whatever you have on the field unopposed, because I don't have to think about it. You can't negate anything I do. There's a lot of that, but that doesn't come until mid to late game. In Yu-Gi-Oh, you can just start the game off, especially now, and just play all your cards. The problem is, the cards are so powerful now that when you play all of them, you tend to win. Whereas in Edison format, if you play all your cards, you tend to lose. And I'm a fan, I guess, of the formats where if you play your cards recklessly, you just lose the game as opposed to winning the game. I don't like the fact that right now you are rewarded. And I never really thought about this until I say this often, but like these conversations we have kind of make me realize certain things. But that is the problem I have with current Yu-Gi-Oh! Is that you are rewarded for playing all your cards. I don't think that you benefit.
And currently, you're supposed to play all your cards.
You draw 5, and your goal is to use all of them except your hand traps, which you're going to play them immediately on your opponent's turn. Like it's just not very. It's just not what it used to be. It's a different game to me, and I just choose to not want to play that different game. I'm not saying that it's necessarily a worse game objectively. It's just not a
different game. It really is.
It's a different game. Yeah, like when you were playing Master Duel, Kenny, you know that you're not playing fucking the same thing as when we played Delta and Edison format.
Because the other thing is, the thing with current Yu-Gi-Oh! That's almost interesting in a way is that it's, in a way, even though it's so much further away from Magic and that you literally play your whole hand, it also feels closer to Magic. And what I mean by that is you play your whole fucking hand immediately. But what you're doing in current Yu-Gi-Oh! Is you're just like building a castle.
Yes.
Right? Like you on turn 1, you just build a castle, and then like those are your resources. Your resources are your 3 negates. Your resources are, the negates or whatever you set up on the board, and like your opponent can see them, and then like they have to go and like break into. They have to tear down the walls. They have to find a way to break through, and then set up their resources, which is their 3 negates or whatever. I don't know. It's like it's obviously nothing like Magic, but what I mean is that it feels like you have.
I think that
you're
makes a
trying
lot of
to
sense.
build a resource.
Yeah.
In Yu-Gi-Oh! And in current
you just
Yu-Gi-Oh!
do it so fast.
Yeah,
because the problem is that like modern Yu-Gi-Oh, for the most part, as far as I understand it, because I'm a little bit more out of the loop in that case. I just kind of only know things to know the most prevalent things. Like the older style resources, which is like the more cards you have, the more situations, plays, aggressive, defensive things that you could do. The more cards you have, you can generally deal with more things. And it's like the resource game now of Yu-Gi-Oh! Is like the more shit that you have on the board that affects what your opponent wants to do on their turn matters more than like how many fucking cards you have in your hand, unless you're trying to ash something.
The other thing about old Yu-Gi-Oh! You having more cards, it's not even just about dealing with situations, it's about playing out of situations. Like, if you get blown up, it's like, well, okay, I got blown up, but in order to blow me up, he now only has like, he has a guy on board and 2 cards in his hand. I still have 5 cards in my hand. So like he blew me out, but I can come back from this. Current Yu-Gi-Oh! And this isn't whether it's bad or good, because I enjoy playing Master Duel, but it is truly a different game. You set up your board, and like if they break you, if they make that push, it's like you just like you lose. Like there
Yeah.
isn't really a playing back out of it. Like if they break you down,
Yeah, it's
completely
game.
destroy your board and set up, like it's just game.
And if you don't break the board, you lose. And so here's the problem. So I was at the Philly regional last week. There was a regional in Philly this past weekend, and the guy who ended up going undefeated stopped next to me because his friend who I was hanging out, Sarah, shout out to her, shout out to Willie, who went undefeated at the Philly regional this past weekend. He's playing the new Despia branded deck. And I think he stopped over around like round 6 or something. So there were still 3 more rounds. It was a 9-round regional, pretty small for a Philly regional, but there was raining all day and it wasn't really advertised really well. So it was a 9-round regional, and he comes around like round 6 or 7. And I was like, oh, how you doing? He's like, oh, I'm undefeated. I played this guy, whatever, who like just topped the recent YCS, and like I 2-0'd him, smacked him up real good. I was like, oh, nice. But he told me he actually killed the guy who had 15,000 life points in one turn, and he was bragging about it. And he said, so later in the conversation, after he told me that he killed his opponent who had 15,000 life points in one turn by summoning not 5, but 6 fusions. He had 6 fusions on the field because he had the extra monster zone and all 5 of his
Jesus Christ.
So he says this to me, right? And then as we're talking later in the conversation, probably like 5 minutes into the conversation, he goes, so you ever coming back? And I stopped and I looked over at him and I said, no, because
did you just hear what you said?
You just told me that you, and he started laughing immediately. He said, you just told me that you killed your opponent who had 15,000 life points by summoning not 1, not 2, not 5, but 6 fusion monsters in one turn from nothing, and you killed him for 15k. You told me that. You sat here and you told me that, and then you proceeded to ask me 5 minutes later because you forgot if I was going to come back to this game. The answer is
it's not that he forgot. It's he's numb to it. He's fucking numb. He could have blatantly just said, like, instead of telling you this whole big story about how he killed them at 1500, he could have just looked you in the eye and said, yeah, you're not safe at 1500 life points anymore. You want to come back?
That's what makes it such a different game, right? Think about this. There's not really the interaction of the player. Like if my turn is I summon 6 monsters and have 1500 life, on your turn, you're not playing against me anymore. Like I have my thing set up. Now you just have to get through it. And then if you're able to get rid of 6 monsters on the board and 1500 life, like
15,000.
It's just a different 15,000. Yeah, it's just a different game. Like it is just not the same game.
Yeah, it's
like so that's fine, but
yeah, like if that's what you like. But my thing is that there is not much in the way of coming back from situations. I also watched another round. I just wanted to confirm something for myself when I went to the Philly Regional. I watched very little Modern Yu-Gi-Oh, but I watched enough to confirm that what I thought was true is true. I watched Ned Salkovich play. He's also playing Despia Branded. He's playing his opponent who I think was playing a mix of Tri Brigade and Despia Branded or something like that. Essentially, they were playing the same deck. And game 1, Ned won a die roll, and he won because he set up a board that his opponent couldn't break, and his opponent immediately scooped. Then game 2, the guy set up a board, Ned couldn't break it, and Ned scooped immediately as well. And then game 3, Ned went first again. He set up a board, his opponent couldn't break it, and then he won again. So I saw that, and then I had the guy who went undefeated tell me how he won one of his games, and pretty much how he'd been playing the whole tournament, just like scraping everybody. And I was like, this does not sound like what I want to do with my time. Like, I am just not a fan of how volatile these games are. A lot of times what I'm seeing is that the best player is actually not winning or doing well at these events. And that really, Yu-Gi-Oh's always had somewhat of that to a degree, right? Like, there's definitely been periods where complete randoms are winning events. But I am not a fan of that. I don't like the idea of a format where, anyone who's not that skilled can just win. That's not good. Like, that is just to a competitive player. People who didn't put the time in and still do well, or even, God forbid, win the event, I'm not a fan. I don't care how people feel about that. I'm just not a fan of that at all. I don't want people getting carried.
In the older formats, when somebody completely random would win, at the end of the day, and this is just the nature of card games, there is RNG involved. Like I can beat Frazier if Frazier really just draws nothing, I can just beat him, right?
Yeah.
Like there's
anybody else.
And yeah, so but with current Yu-Gi-Oh, the way it works is like if I win the coin flip, if I win the die roll, I can just set a board up, and it's like it.
You don't matter. The person, like, how good you are.
We're not playing.
Yes. You could have done, honestly, a lot of the games that I've watched, the opponent didn't need to be there.
Yeah, a lot of current, and once again, because I don't want anybody to think I'm hating on it. Like, I do think it's got its own merit. I truly enjoy playing it on Master Duel, but it is a different game. I very rarely feel like I'm playing my opponent. The only thing you need to know is, like, what's the one key card that I have to negate? Like, you just, like, gotta know where to use your negates. And so it's not about me playing Frazier. It's not like, Frazier uses this card in a unique way. There's no unique way to do it. I just negate that card.
Yeah.
That's what I really, really think is probably one of the worst things about modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Is that it's like there's no nuance of like how I'm gonna use this card or summon this monster.
Yeah.
It's just like if that effect goes off and it's too much, then it has to
every
get
time someone plays Fusion Destiny, it's getting Ash Blossomed.
Yes.
That card is never not
resolving. It's only resolving if I have nothing, and I'm gonna have to scoop anyway.
Right. It is getting Ash Blossomed 100% of the time. Ash Blossom is in my hand. It's just getting Ash Blossomed every time. There's no question.
The other thing is, like, you can't pro heavy in modern Yu-Gi-Oh. You know what I mean? Like, and what I mean, I'm not saying literally heavy storm, but there's not really an opportunity to do those types of plays where you can use heavy storm in arguably a bad way. Like, a lot of times pro heavy isn't the smartest play to do, but when you do it, it's such a big swing, right? But you can't really do that anymore.
There's another thing too. Like, you bring up pro heavy and it made me think of a lot of other things. So in Edison format, just for example, this is just one format, but it's a very popular one right now, as you know. There's a lot of things to play around. A lot of things to take into consideration. There's Gores, there's Torrential Tribute, and there's Mirror Force. These are the big three that I could think of right now. The fear of Mirror Force makes people put monsters in defense mode. The fear of Torrential makes people not summon a monster when they have a monster that they could summon. The fear of Gores makes people not attack with their highest monster. All of these things contribute to the game going longer. And it contributes to people making reads and people managing their resources and saying, I can afford a Torrential right now. I can afford getting hit by Mirror Force right now. I can afford you to drop Gores right now. You have to play based on like what you can leverage with what you have and what happens if they do have this problematic ass card. And I love that about the game. Like, can you afford to get Torrential right here? If not, then like you should not be playing into it. But the fact that you can play into a Torrential though, and I might not have it. And
the thing that's even more beautiful about that, and I don't mean to cut you off, but I think it's like a pretty important thing to note, is that there's also a level to it as well where you can make a miscalculation of that, where it's like, oh, I can afford a Mirror Force, but
you can't.
When the game plays out the way it's going to play out, you're actually just wrong. And that's like another skill testing thing on top of it, is like, all right, I'm playing around Mirror Force. I don't need to play around Mirror Force anymore. But you also could just be wrong. Like, And it's important to know when you should be going for it, even if they do end up having it, it was still correct to go for it. And like that type of knowledge, like that, knowing you made the read and you thought like, okay, if he has it, it's fine. I'm not out the game, but if he doesn't have it, I just win the game. Like, knowing that too is also important. My first week of playing Edison, I summoned the Stardust Dragon. I had something else on the field too. And I attacked my opponent directly with Stardust Dragon, and he dropped Gores, and I lost immediately. Like, the game went downhill for me. And this is my first week. I haven't played Yu-Gi-Oh! In 5 years. This is like my first week back, and I forgot just how ridiculous Gores was as a card. Like, it just, obviously, not only had I not played Yu-Gi-Oh! In 5 years, but in the last 5 years of me playing,
Gores wasn't a thing.
He wasn't even playable. So it was like, there's probably 10 years of no Gores knowledge in my, you know what I mean? It was like a 10-year gap of Gores. And so when I got Gores on a Stardust attacking directly, it immediately came back to me in that moment. I was like, oh God, this was so bad back in the day. Like, whenever somebody attacked me with a Stardust directly and I dropped Gores and I got a 25
you would be licking your fucking lips.
I'd be like, oh, you just fucked up so bad. Like, you just made possibly one of the worst plays you could ever make. So like, that type of knowledge and playing now I know, like, you will never see me do that in Edison format now. Like, I have to have a really good I have to have Mirror Force basically for me to do that. So there's just certain things that, like, you know, the game is so much slower because of fear. Because if I don't attack you for that 25, even if he doesn't have Gores, I'm so afraid to attack that it's going to extend the game now. He gets chances to draw out of it. But because of all the negates that you have in modern Yu-Gi-Oh, because of how powerful the fucking cards are, they're so powerful. It's like, well, there is no Gores-like cards in current Yu-Gi-Oh! Anyway. Like, Nibiru is probably the closest type of monster, maybe, but he comes down during main phase. There's no battle phase needed for him. He doesn't really extend the game either. People are either going to summon their 5 monsters or they're not. Like, there isn't, and then the adventure package also just makes them not a thing. That's the other thing. The adventure package just makes it where you can't even summon Nibiru. That's kind of the reason why that package came out in the first place, is that it trivialized Nibiru, which was Nibiru kind of kept the game in balance a little bit. Like it was like, okay, if you summon too many times, on Nibiru, you lose your whole field. Now, the adventure package, which is like the most popular splashed package in the game, it makes it where I can just negate that and continue. So yeah, it's just not in a good spot.
That is wild to me. I actually didn't even know that.
Yeah, negating is too much. I just think that every monster shouldn't be a trap. Like every monster does not need to be a trap. It's actually so interesting when you're playing Edison, how the monsters outside of Heraclinos and Stardust Dragon and Titanial, I think those are the three. Those are the three main ones. There are no monsters that really act as negates or traps. Like it's really hard to put up a monster that stops your opponent from doing something. Like if I put a Colossal Fighter, it doesn't stop you from doing anything. Even Thought Ruler doesn't stop you from doing anything. Like Red Dragon, all these other monsters, Brionic, they don't stop you from doing anything. Just like they have effects, and their effects typically only apply on the user's turn, and that's it. But like monsters in Yu-Gi-Oh, they got to a point where they're all trap monsters, so they play on my turn and your turn. When I say pass, my monster does something on your turn. And it doesn't do a little bit of something. It does a lot of bit of something.
Yeah,
So that's kind of the issue.
Modern Brionic would be on either player's turn. I can discard a card and bounce a card on the field.
Yes, that is Modern Brionic. Modern Brionic would do exactly what you just said, but it would also be a fucking 4-star monster that you can normal summon.
A 4-star monster. Don't be saying that.
Yeah, it would be an 1800 monster that says during either player's turn, you can discard a card to bounce a card on the field.
You know what? And a cherry on top, it would also be like a good type. Like it would be like a warrior or something, or it'd be like a winged beast.
It would be searchable.
And also, it would be a dark.
It would be dark. It would be searchable. It would be everything that it needs to be. And we're probably talking about a card that actually exists, by the way. Like, because the effect we're saying is not crack. It's just like, this is very... There's a monster right now called Albaz. I'm pretty sure it's Albaz. And he just fuses with your opponent's monsters. He's super powerful.
Yeah. That card is ridiculous.
Yes. And he's played in the best deck, I think. So, like, there is a fucking Super Poly walking right now.
A walking super poly with legs. To double back to what I was saying,
but yeah, the difficulty of how like being good at Yu-Gi-Oh requires.
Yeah, I just like I get it now. Like I've really been trying with trying to improve and like Edison format and play Yu-Gi-Oh, and it's like a really, really difficult game. So like it's just
the more you play it, the more you'll realize it's one of those things where at the surface, right, when you first start playing it, you say, "Oh, okay, I see what you do now. I see what this game is."
Yeah.
But the more you learn, the more you realize the bigger picture. You're like, "Holy shit, this is
it's just
actually
like
so much."
It really makes me feel like the same way when I was learning Melee. It's like when I try to go for something, or I try to fight someone that's better than me. Like when I try to do something in Yu-Gi-Oh and it's like the incorrect play.
Mm-hmm.
I just love the way that you put it. Is like Yu-Gi-Oh will make sure you know that you misplayed because what you did went wrong, and then the worst possible thing is going to happen afterwards.
Yeah,
right?
Yu-Gi-Oh
Immediately
punishes so fast. The punish game of Yu-Gi-Oh is actually crazy.
Yes, Yu-Gi-Oh is the Donkey Kong
quick.
of Yu-Gi-Oh is the Donkey Kong of competitive games. It punishes.
I'll say like, oh well, you should have discarded that Raikou because like it's game 2 and 3 and they could have Vanity's Fiend. What happened on the very next fucking turn? This fucking guy.
A fucking guy summoned Vanity's Fiend, and my deck literally had 0 outs.
I was like, you shouldn't have discarded that Raikou. And mind you, we were playing. It was like 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. or something at night, and me and you were just up playing. Everyone else had like got off of Discord. It was just me and you. I was literally laying on my side with my laptop in front of me because I love Yu-Gi-Oh so much. I was like, I should be going to sleep because I think it was Sunday night, and like I was like, I have to work.
Yeah, it was work time.
Yeah, I feel like it was like I need to work in the morning, but I want to just watch, my apprentice play some Yu-Gi-Oh. I watched you play a lot of games, and like I would call like misplays when I felt like it. And on that particular one, you had options to discard like Foolish Burial, Raikou, and like some other cards. And I was like, yeah, you should have discarded Foolish Burial. It doesn't do anything right here. And you definitely don't discard Raikou in games 2 and 3 when your opponent could just drop a Vanity's Fiend. This motherfucker immediately dropped the Vanity's Fiend. I just thought that was so ridiculous. And then you lost. And it was like, yeah, that's how Yu-Gi-Oh teaches you, like, all right, well, don't do that again.
It's just so funny too, because it's just like it's been so long since I felt so foolish for like doing something incorrectly. Like in Melee and Smash, like it was all just about refining like what I'm good at now.
Yeah.
And it's like Yu-Gi-Oh! Like I literally just feel day one in everything that I do. Like it's just like I'm not confident in what I need to do. I always need to triple and second and triple guess myself in
true.
what I want to do. And I'm just like, damn, it's like exciting at the same time, but it's also super frustrating because it's
Yeah.
just like, damn. I told
straight
you
up.
before, I was just like, I draw well, and like sometimes I play well. I feel like I would be such a great player if I could just play well all the time, but it's
Yeah,
just
your
like so
hands,
difficult.
every hand that you draw for the most part, I want to play it. Like I want to play. Now, this is not to say that I don't also draw well, because I mean, you guys know me now. Like I am pretty lucky also. Like I'm a pretty lucky player. I can't even lie. But like some of the hands that you guys get when I'm watching, I just want them so bad. Like I just want to play that hand because it's like a fun hand to play, and the way the games evolve looks so fun. But it is what it is. Like Yu-Gi-Oh, there's a lot to learn. Even I'm still learning stuff. Like I'm still, because Edison, as I call it, new Edison. Like there's still stuff to learn. Like a lot of my Yu-Gi-Oh knowledge from the past is carrying me, and most of my like when I play in my locals, I win most of my matches, right? And that is from just me playing so much Yu-Gi-Oh. But I still learn shit. Like I'm still learning things like, okay, if you're playing against a deck that plays Ryza, don't even bother setting fucking your Dust Tornado. Just keep that shit in your hand. Because you'd rather they go, if they go like brain control and they have to tribute your monster, then like there's nothing on the field for you to Ryza. But if I set that Dust Tornado with my Raikou and you go like Soul Exchange it and then Ryza my Dust Tornado, I'm in a bad spot. So like you start to learn little tiny things like that. Like don't put yourself in a position to get Ryza if you can help it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just like one little thing that just happened to me last week, and like, I already kind of knew that, but it reinforced it when it happened to me. And my Dust Tornado got Ryza, and I was like, okay, that just didn't feel good. And I was like, all right, so yeah, next time I'm not even going to be setting this against this deck. I knew he was playing this deck already. I knew worst case scenario was Soul Exchange Ryza, and that's exactly what happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, yes, it's unfortunate that it happened, but he could play 3 of both of those cards, so it's not crazy, right? And even if it was Caius, I'd rather like. I don't even want my Dust Tornado to get Caius. If I have one monster in the field and you have to go Soul Exchange, you can't even summon a Monarch. There's no Monarch you can summon that they play. They don't play Testalo. So there's no monsters that you can summon off the Soul Exchange that I'm going to be sick about except like Ryza and Caius, and I have to play into those. You have to play into Monarchs. I always say this. Monarchs don't do anything on their own. So like the only Monarch, and this is the reason why he's actually my favorite Monarch, is Testalos. The only Monarch that like you can't really hide from him is Testalos. Yeah. You have to be able to play. You have to be able to put all your cards on the field, and I don't think that's a good idea. Personally, he's the only one that you can really like. He's the only one that makes it where I'm going to do something. If you try to not play into it, I'm going to punish you for trying to not play into it. Which is why it's really good to play both the Stalos and the other Monarchs, because people try to play around the other Monarchs by not coming into the field, and then Stalos comes around, it's like, oh, take your Miracle Fusion. You're like, fuck.
Yep.
But yeah, that's just me getting really specific of how Yu-Gi-Oh has so many little tiny interactions, like these micro interactions that matter so much, and they really impact the entire game. Like the little tiny things you do. Okay, I saw last week in my local, and we're going to start to wrap up here. A guy has 3 heroes on the field, and he goes Miracle Fusion to summon a 4th hero. He summons Gaia, because the guy had a Spirit Reaper and a face-down monster. So his opponent has Spirit Reaper face-up in defense and a face-down monster, no back row. Okay? Spirit Reaper in defense mode, face-down monster, no back row. And the guy who I'm watching play has 3 heroes. The heroes are Elemental Hero Ocean, Stratos, and Alias. He goes Miracle Fusion. He fuses his graveyard Barbaros and his graveyard something else to summon an Elemental Hero Gaia. Gaia targets Spirit Reaper to kill it. So now the guy just has a face-down monster and nothing else. There are 4 heroes and a face-down monster on the opponent's side of the field, and that's it. 4 heroes against the face-down monster. He goes Alias attack face-down. It is Snowman Eater. Snowman Eater pops Gaia, and now he has to end his battle phase. And I said to him, wow, that was a pretty huge fuck up, because the difference between Alias and Gaia was literally a few hundred life points. So you, instead of attacking with your highest, so essentially the rule here that I taught him was, in Edison format, I don't know if this is true in other formats, but in Edison format, use your biggest monster to attack face-down monsters. Like, it's not worth it for, you were going to do an extra 300 with Gaia if it attacked directly. But now, because Gaia was the only monster that could be the Snowman Eater, you have to end your entire battle phase. You lost out on 18, 15, and 1900 damage. Like, that's how much damage you would have done. Because he, if Gaia attacked face down, his choices were, do you want to pop one of my 3 little monsters so you save like a little bit of damage, or do you want to pop the Gaia?
Also,
Any
even
go
if it
ahead.
wasn't Stone, even if it was Raikou, like now
Still,
the Raikou has to choose to not destroy Gaia.
yes. And that's the position you always want your opponent to be in. You don't want them to be in a position where, like, you know that they're going to pop the monster that you want to keep. Like, I attack, for example, if I'm playing the dragons, I attack with Red Eyes Darkness Metal a lot of the time face down. Because I want it to be Raikou, and I want you to have to choose, let's say, Blue Eyes, or whatever else the dragon that's
Yep.
next to.
You can ignore 3,000 damage, and that Blue Eyes is coming right back.
Yes. So
Next
I want
turn.
you to pop that and not, but if you do pop Red Eyes, I want you to pay for it with 3,000 direct. So I attack with Red Eyes. I want you to pay for it. So I'm going to attack you with Red Eyes on your face down with Raikou, and you have a decision to make. Do I take 3K, or do I pop, or do I pop the Blue Eyes and not take 3K? But then I have the problem of next turn, if I don't give it the Red Eyes, fucking Blue Eyes is coming right back. I like making the decision really hard for people, and you do that by attacking with problematic monsters on the face down monster. You just attack with something very problematic. And so in that case, his big monster was problematic, and he should have attacked with that first. Like, again, like Kenny said, even if it was Raikou, even if he didn't have the read that it's Snowman Eater, like, even if you don't know it's Snowman Eater and you think, like, oh, it's just Raikou, you should still be attacking what I think with the biggest monster, because you don't want them to pop the biggest monster. And if they do, you want them to pay for it. If you pop my Gaia, I attack with 3 heroes directly. If you don't pop Gaia, then, sure, you only take 2 of the heroes directly, and Gaia lives, though. And I want Gaia to, he's huge. I want Gaia to live.
And also, if you think about it, even an additional layer, let's just say their decision, let's just say they fucking do something dumb and they don't pop the Gaia, right? It's like, even if it's an open board and they drop Gores on the 1900, like he can't trade for free with like the token over Gaia. Like he has to throw that Gores attack there.
Yeah, and
like
the other thing, go ahead.
Just in general, like he just can't make like the most value based like monster battle like beat overs.
Yeah, Gores wasn't even that good in that situation because of how much card advantage the hero player had. Like, he had, again, Ocean, Stratos, Alias. So the guy's going to attack lowest to highest directly. So if you do drop Gores on 1900, you've taken all of these attacks, though. That's a lot of fucking damage to get a big token. And, like, your 1900 token isn't even that good. But the scarier part, and this is to add more context to the situation, is that this game, because of Spirit Reaper, it had stalled out for so long that at some point the hero player drew Captain Gold, discarded, and had Skyscraper in his hand. So, like, Gores literally wasn't even a factor where the game was. And that's why I just narrowed the game down to just Spirit Reaper in defense, a face down monster against 3 heroes, and then a Miracle Fusion for a Gaia to get from 4 monsters total against these 2 monsters that Spirit Reaper got popped immediately, and he attacks face down with Alias, and he's forced to pass his entire battle phase. And he almost ends up losing the game because of this one little thing. And I saw all of that for 300 life points. Because that's the difference. The Gaia being 22 and Alias being 19. I was like, all that for 300. He said, damn, you're right.
Yeah. And that's funny too, because there's been many lessons you showed me in Yu-Gi-Oh! Where it's like all this for this outcome that you wanted. And I'm like, it's so so hard for me, like, learning, and like this is why it's fun to learn it, is that it's so hard for me to see these things in the moment, because I just feel the pressure of just trying to do the right choice and like trying to learn the right choice.
Yeah, it's not easy.
Yeah. It's just funny because you see it so snap fast, and I'm just like sitting there.
So quick how fast I see like, a lot of times, to me, I don't even realize that there's another play to make. And you guys,
like
how often do I say I don't even see another play? Like, you'll be looking at your hand, and you'll be like, I'm thinking this, and I'm thinking this, and then I won't say anything. And then when I do say something, I'll be like, I don't, like, you'll make a play, and I'll be like, I didn't even see anything else. Like, I didn't even see another play was possible. Like, whatever you even saw, I don't even know it existed.
Yeah. And that's just like that's something kind of crazy for me, but it's relatable in that sense now because I understand it from playing Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yeah.
It's very similar to like Smash in terms of like if someone wants to punish a certain way, or like they take somebody to like a weird counter pick where I'm just like, I can't even believe that you thought this was like in the realm of what you wanted to do. And it's just it's just the same exact shit. So I'm just like on the other end of the stick again.
Yeah, you have a lot to learn, but I mean, that's part of the journey. It's really fun that way.
Yeah.
I do want to wrap this up. So before we get out of here, let me give a shout out to our patrons over at Patreon. There are 38 of you. So bear with me as I read out the names of our 38 patrons.
Hell yeah.
Connie, Austin, Leon, Quest, Garen, Xavier, Hylian, TCG Automotive, Silver Chronic, Tyree Tinsley, Dimitri Barnes, Alexander Brissett, Vinny Casello, Game for Yoshi, Alex Flamer, Game Marini, Omri Reynolds, CJ, WK.1, Saul at Dabber's Gaming Cafe, Dan Varable, Dennis Milburn, Joseph Marcello, Scott Page, Red Vines, First to Home, Dallas Fernandez, Tom Wadabiki, S. Akuma, Mitchell Niles, Midwest Gaming, William Shapiro, Dimitri Safirides, Chips, Vince Marquette, Dallas Bailey, KJ, and last but not least, Doc and Ziggy. Thank you guys so much for your support. We really appreciate it. As we say, it goes a long way. I also want to mention the roadmap for the IMNerd podcast. So coming up, we had a lot of things that we were going to talk about today. If you're watching this on Patreon, you see that we have a background of House of the Dragon with a little rant on it. I wanted to talk about the House of the Dragon trailer that dropped a couple days ago. I want to talk about the fact that someone tackled Dave Chappelle and they got their fucking ass absolutely whipped.
Yes.
More Edison conversation. We also have a listener letter about our episode 69, Hentai in Class. So there are a couple things that we are going to be talking about, I guess, on our next episode that'll be dropping Monday for the Sunday night recording. And then we also just have other things we still want to do. We have another food episode, food talk that we want to do, like ranking fast food. There's also, Philly is getting a Cane's tomorrow on Thursday. So when you guys are hearing this, it'll be the day that Cane's goes live in Philly. And it's like a chicken spot. It's really famous down south. A lot of people swear by it, but that's coming up. So I'm going to have Cane's hopefully before we do our next food podcast. I had it once in my life, but I forget how good it was. I do remember it being good. I just don't remember exactly like how good. So there's like all types of shit we still have planned coming down the pipeline. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode with Stang0 and just talking about Smash and also just the competitive mindset, right? Like even if you don't really understand Smash too well, like Smash Bros, I hope that you at least understood just the mindset of a competitive player and what it takes to compete at a high level and just learn some things about resetting yourself and always knowing that you can learn. Like I said, even with me, I have accomplished a lot in Yu-Gi-Oh, but I never take it for granted. I never think that there's nothing for me to learn. I never tell people that, you know, that doesn't matter to me what you're saying. Because if I feel like I can learn something from anybody, then, you know, I will take it. I take all the information I can. It just makes me better overall. And I want to always be better. I hate losing. So if you hate losing, you're going to do everything you can within your means to stop yourself from losing.
There's even little things that you can just learn through conversation. Like even in this episode, there was, I don't remember what it was, but we were talking about something and it made you realize something about yourself that you didn't realize that you liked about like Edison format, right? Like there's always little things that you can learn and like that'll, after you learn it, it'll forever shift your perspective. And that's going to affect thought processes and things that you do in the future.
Yeah. So, yeah, but as I always say, do the things that make you happy. And that's episode 71.
So long, Gay Bowser.
And then the breaks.